Hey there, welcome to the special crossover episode, Killer POV and the Bloodcast. This is like the Avengers team up, because Rebekah and Clarke have never met.
No, we'd never
until
met
this very moment, which is exciting.
We got really high pitched for a moment. It was a lot of like, oh my god.
It was a squee.
Girls
It was a
got
large
all
squee.
Squeaky.
So the Killer POV crew. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G from FEARnet, and we've got Elric Kane from Inside Horror and Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Yes.
And then on the Bloodcast side, Ryan Turek from Shock to Drop.
What's
and
up?
Clarke Wolfe.
Hi, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Year in review.
That's our theme song for the day.
This is our special year in review, best of 2013. There was a lot of horror stuff and that we all talked about here at Geek Nation for quite a bit. So, Elric, you sort of had somewhat of a template for what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think we're just going to
It's going to turn into anarchy.
It's going to be anarchy, but
It's
this is going to be
total
good
anarchy.
anarchy. We're going to leap right 10 to 1. We're going to go backwards on our list. A lot of this will cross over. A lot of it will conflict. And we're just going to talk about that. Once we hit at the end of that, we will go into like other categories, little things like performance or favorite Blu-ray. So, keep listening. This should be full of great lists. And then I think we should publish all 5 of these top 10s. I know you guys have published on your sites, but I think we should make a good comprehensive list for people.
Yeah, the one I'm doing here is different than the one for Fango, because for Fango, they kind of encourage us to do ones that, like films that haven't been released yet.
Films
that
you
maybe
sponsored and you guys have put money into. And
No. No, luckily I don't have to do those. Germsy.
Oh, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. No, for Fango, we're encouraged to do ones that like maybe not everyone has seen. So like ones I've seen at AFM that haven't been released yet, those go on my top 10 list.
So upcoming.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this
like festival
I did.
stuff?
Yeah, like festival stuff and things like
okay.
that. And then for this, I did ones that, everyone in America could go see right now if they wanted to. You have full access.
Yeah, I also looked too at release date, like official release date, because I know you guys probably saw a bunch of the stuff in 2012 on the festival circuit, but like a lot of it came out, actually came out in 2013. Yeah. So hopefully
that's what I did. And if anyone else didn't, I did anything released between January 1st, 2013 to December 31st.
On the actual theatrical.
If I saw it at a festival or whatever, doesn't
count.
Because if people are listening or reading our top 10s, I want them to be able to find the movie.
Right, exactly.
It's unfair to be like, hey, I saw this great movie that you're not going to see for 3 years.
Exactly.
And if there's a couple that are off that, who cares? I mean, we all tried to do that.
Yeah,
we'll see what actually.
No,
Yeah,
we're
the
throwing you out of the room.
Yeah, usually
I
the
thought
criteria
it'd
for
be
me,
you.
the criteria for me is usually within a release. It doesn't do anybody any good to have something that you saw at a festival. It doesn't help the viewer or the reader. Well, it gives them a preview. It gives them a preview, but they're like Rob said, they need to be able to find it.
And that could be another show.
So
right?
when I say Green Inferno is my number 1 movie of the year, Elric drops dead. And
fucking insane.
There's no way that's true.
I'm kidding.
Throws you out of the room.
I'll tell you, 2 of my picks for this year are movies that were on the shelf for years and years. And I feel like now it's appropriate to put them on the top 10.
Cool.
So there you go.
All right.
I also didn't rank mine appropriately. I screwed up. I already messed up.
Oh, did you?
I have a number 1 and a number 2 and then a list.
All right. So
While we start, we'll start with number 10. We'll go this way. And by then you can figure out.
You've got some time to catch up.
It's like we're timer.
Cheat off Rob really quick.
Exactly.
And if everyone's the same as Ryan, we're going to have an issue.
Yeah, exactly. They will be too.
All right. So number 10, Elric, why don't you kick it off?
Number 10. Okay, so in the last couple of days, I have been binge watching, but not the big movies. I've been watching a lot of the indies because I knew I had like one spot left in my list, and I knew one of these smaller films was going to probably make it. I was talking about Barbarian Sound Studio, a bunch of stuff. None of those are going to make it. The film, no, that didn't make it. Don't worry.
Already happened.
It really bored me. What it did make it, I thought it's a movie that actually could be a lot higher on my list once I have more time to think about it. And that is Here Comes the Devil by Adrian Garcia Bugliano. I had liked parts of his movies, but I've never liked a whole movie of his. Cold Sweat had interesting moments. Penumbra bothered me. And even this film is not a masterpiece, but it is like on its way to him making a fucking awesome movie. Like it's fun.
It's much
solid.
more accomplished.
Yeah,
and it's a little bit more focused than Penumbra and Cold Sweat are.
Yeah, the sexuality is really intense. The Catholic guilt. I'm not Catholic, so I think it would play even better to Catholics because the Catholic guilt in it. I mean, there's a couple getting it on, older parents getting it on in a car while their children go missing, and and you just feel this like immense guilt for the whole thing. But it's really stylish.
It's very Antichrist of him.
It is. It actually has a lot of similarities to
there's
Antichrist.
a lot of kind of tones of the marriage dissolving and things like that. But,
and a lot of crash zooms. I mean, when do you see? And there's some Nick Rogue, like Don't Look Now flourishes in there. I just thought it was a lot of fun, and I'd watched literally, I think, like 8 films in the last 3 nights and all indie type horror, including Toad Road and a bunch of other stuff. And that was the only one that I was like, yep. Yeah, so that's in there.
The only thing that he needs to learn is to cut. He's a little bit too precious about everything in the movie.
Right.
And that was my only problem is it's a little too long or he leaves beats linger for way too long.
But I guess that has to be a foreign, it's foreign aesthetic, I guess.
And I think that actually flows with the film because the film, even though there's some crazy ass shit going on in it, it's kind of a slow burn. I mean, it spans 2 days and it's very, but I like the breathing room that it gives where it just holds on the shots. She might be doing the dishes, somebody comes in and says something and then it still holds on the dishes for 30 seconds. And I kind of liked that element.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Slow wasn't the thing I got. Maybe I wasn't thinking about it. Maybe I think We Are What We Are, the original. Yeah. I look at the film like that and go, oh, that's really slowly paced. Really, I thought it was the same director initially. When I was watching this, like, oh, this must be the We Are What We Are guy because it's set in Tijuana, not Argentina. Or is it Chile? I'm not sure where he's from. I think it's Argentina. But anyway, it was a great film, and I think it was a lot of fun. So number 10 was locked.
Wow.
Nice.
All right.
My number 10, I'll keep it short and sweet because we've all talked about this a lot, but You're Next just squeezed in at number 10.
Nice.
Big festival darling, if you will, finally came out this year. That's the thing. It wasn't on my best of 3 years ago. It's on my best of this
I'm going to
year.
ask you, because I want this to be engaging too. People have heard us. Why so low? Because that seems low, given the hype.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because I think it's an okay movie. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's a great movie.
Right.
I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. I've said before that home invasion is my least favorite subgenre of horror, mainly because it's one of my biggest fears.
Right.
So I have a tough time watching those movies. This one did the one thing that all the other ones don't, which is like part of the reason I hate watching them is because nobody ever does anything when you know what I mean? And it's like, if this is going to be it, you got to try to.
But that was why the one good thing about this film is that somebody does something about it, right?
Yeah,
it's like that's the whole point of this movie, right? It's
and some of the dark humor also, because I'm kind of a sucker for that. But again, it's not a perfect movie and it's not a great movie, but it's pretty cool.
It felt like the unscripted parts between Swanberg and AJ were better than the actual scripted dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
Like I had more fun in those couple scenes with Swanberg, who is an actor I've never liked.
Yeah,
in that film, I loved him.
I only like him when he's in movies with AJ.
Yeah,
because they always improv and do fun shit together. So.
That was my number 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
It didn't even make my list.
Oh. Did you see it though?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah. I ended up seeing it.
Y'all know it's not on my list.
We know.
I don't know. Why? You didn't like it? I don't remember you saying. Tell us why.
She hated it.
Well, that's good. I want to hear. This is why we're here. Let's go into why we hate movies or like movies without slamming people behind them. Who cares? They're big boys. They understand.
We know that we love the people involved in some of these films, but at the end of the day, I still need to say I'm not a fan of home invasion films, and it wasn't my cup of tea for some reason. It was just, it was competently made, but at the end of the day, I was just meh.
It's good to get outside the bubble of the You're Next type. Look at this.
No, I'm curious. And so what was it about it?
It just did not work for me. I didn't I thought the script was terrible. I didn't like the acting. And that's not a criticism of the actors.
It's the style of movie.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't work for me. And also, to me, one of the biggest things that really upset me about this whole female empowerment kind of title that movie got bestowed with, it's cool that she did fight back. I thought that was awesome. And she was super, super smart and competent and all of that. But the thing that pissed me off a lot was that one fucking line where they're like, how do you know how to do all this? And she's like, I was raised on a crazy Aboriginal colony.
And she was in not Aboriginal. It was what's it called?
Survivalist.
Colony.
Right, and I was like, what? And
you don't have to qualify it.
That's exactly it. Yes. Because nobody explains why Ripley makes it in Alien. Nobody explains why Sidney Prescott makes it. It's not dying is the reason.
But the thing is though, as Ripley has experience
military training
military training at this point. With this, if somebody did not explain it, we've seen this power girl, this final girl, this thing turn the table so many times. Someone's going to ask if they didn't insert that line. What I'm saying is everybody's going to go, oh, so where did she get her training? How does she know?
See, that was actually when I walked out.
That's a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation.
When I walked out of that theater, I thought to myself, that would have been, if they had not qualified with that one line, why she was able to, and competent enough to lead the group and walk out, I would have walked out, even though I didn't like the movie, and say, I have never seen anything like that before. Yeah. I've never seen somebody just go, because she doesn't want to die and she's trying to find weapons and she's trying to rally everyone.
And that's a good enough reason.
But her skill set was heightened, so that wouldn't be enough, would it? Her skill set was better than Killer's.
But I think if the tables were turned, and I don't don't get up on my gender soapbox too often here, guys. Right. So let's just understand that. Yep. But I think that if the tables were turned, because in horror movies, if we see guys, like, oh my gosh, somebody's coming in, let me quick make a Molotov cocktail. Yes. Nobody really questions it. That's just what you do when your life's being threatened.
I do. I question it.
I know how to make a Molotov cocktail. If somebody was bombing us right now,
doing the same thing in that film, I would have had the same problem if they hadn't qualified. Like, why the hell is AJ? Let's say it was AJ killing everyone. I would be like, well, what skill set does he have that these trained killers who are coming to your house doesn't have? So for me, that was one of the better elements for me because I needed to know where she came from.
That whole line, everything that centers around that whole line. I mean, the movie is what it is. I mean, the movie is a home invasion riff that is turning a lot of the tropes on its head. I mean, like, the movie isn't, I don't see it as the ultimate home invasion movie. I see it as a commentary on the genre and the home invasion experience. So
it's more like Home Alone than it is a typical home invasion.
So nobody questions why Kevin has these skill set.
I do.
I didn't think it was smart enough to have something, that, Ryan.
Well, I do. I mean, that's what I think. It's just like, it has that kind of has that very knowing wink quality to it. So when that line comes out of nowhere, I remember seeing it with an entire crowd. We all died. We were laughing our asses off. And I think that was the intent.
I never saw it as humor.
Maybe all they needed to do.
I totally did.
I watched a screener by myself in my living room, and I never saw it as humor.
I saw it at Comic-Con.
That's the problem with movies in general. I'm telling you. Watch it on a screen.
It had the audience I saw it with had kind of a mixed reaction to the movie in general. Some of them were laughing with it. Some of them were laughing at it. It didn't. And I do think that it would have been cool if it had kind of gone very strongly in one way or the other. If it had been like a very intentional wink as opposed to like this, are they winking?
A good intentional would have been her just going, I'm Australian. Killing all these Americans.
Let me ask this funny because I think that line, honestly, that line, the legit reason that line's in there is because she can't do an American accent.
Oh, really?
And they felt like they had to explain it somehow.
Wow. See, I would love for her to respond back with, where did you learn all this basic compeence?
Well, let me just ask.
That's all I would have needed.
Let me ask the Wes Craven fan here. So in Nightmare on Elm Street, no, because you've proven that you are schooled in the world of Wes Craven. Yeah. So in Nightmare on Elm Street, when Heather is basically turning into MacGyver and she's reading up on things, was that funny to you, or was that an organic? Oh yeah, totally, I get that. I totally believe that, because I saw that scene when I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street. I was like, well, this is a little bit silly. But
she went to the library. She got a book and shit.
She got a book and
pulling all this stuff up. I mean,
it's
a little bit silly.
If you
but
were
it's
fighting
funny.
an ancient Sumerian god, just giving an example, wouldn't you maybe pick a book on Sumeria and check out his backstory?
Absolutely. But the execution of it, I mean, like, if they just cut from point A of her going, I'm going to do something about it, to point B of her just setting up that rigging and not explaining how she got those skills, what would that do? Would that like completely?
You're Next?
No, I'm talking about
in Nightmare.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Nightmare on Elm Street. Like if they cut out her reading the books and getting the book and doing all the research and explaining how she got those skills. If they didn't have that, would you be criticizing it as much?
I can't speak to that though, because I saw Nightmare on Elm Street when I was in 2005. For the first time. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like movies have come a long way.
I'm just saying that Sharni's line is a tantamount to that scene.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of the one shot of her going into the library.
I would rather her read a book than be like, I randomly happen to have been raised in a survivalist
It's the
colony.
difference between, hey, I should probably read a book on what this guy does, versus, oh yeah, my whole background, my entire childhood is all about rigging up.
Hold on, spoiler,
traps.
just for a second. If you're listening and haven't seen your ex, just a quick spoiler. I will try not to ruin it. But I think what's interesting about it is because this is this isn't a random attack on a random house. I'm not going to say why it all happens. It is a pre-planned attack, and somebody who plans this attack has no idea that she has that one piece of information. I think it's a really funny part of her backstory because she probably has hid that from certain people in her life because she's embarrassed by it. Yes. And now it's the thing that undoes everything. I know. And I think that's really interesting.
But then they should have kind of teased it out a bit more.
Maybe. That's very, I'm not saying that they delivered it, and it's also not her worst line in the movie, because I'm not going to say what it is, but her last line of the film is my biggest sore point of the whole movie. To the point where it really would probably be 5-6 places higher on my list if it had a better final line for her. And I don't just mean it because it's bad writing. I mean because it was kind of devaluing her power, the last line. But we'll talk about it. I don't want want to ruin that line if you see the movie. But anyway,
you're next.
My number 10.
This is going to be a long show.
I was arguing with somebody about this at Matt Curry Holmes' Christmas party on Saturday. Jug Face. Yeah, Jug Face was my number 10. I thought it was great. The person I was arguing with was like, it's too slow and nothing happens. And I thought everything happens.
Rape, incest, gods and pitch.
Abortions.
Everything happens. Larry Fessenden.
Exactly. So I really liked it. I thought it was a moody little horror film. And if you're looking, for kind of a book on how to make, a $20,000 horror movie, that's a good starting
point. Kissing cousin to the woman, for sure. It feels like it's related to that world.
Very isolated cast. I mean, there was maybe, 15 cast members in the entire thing. Yeah. But yet they made it feel a lot larger.
And it just missed mine. Like, it was one of those ones that was in my 5 or so outside my 10. Yeah. I really liked it a lot.
And I will say it was vying for number 10 spot with Antiviral. But I'll get to Antiviral in a bit.
And a great lead performance. Ashley Carter, I think her name is. She was really good.
Yeah, she was in
She was the daughter and the woman. And in this, she becomes the lead. And I think she was really someone I'd like to see
really
more
good in it.
Cool
stuff.
All right.
Ryan, number 10.
My number 10 is Resolution, which Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead directed. And it's just a fun... I knew nothing about the movie. I knew it was indie. I knew it was like centered around these two guys. One is trying to be a recovering drug addict. The other one is a friend who's trying to get him along, help him go cold turkey. And then they start getting weird messages and all these things. And they're clearly being watched. But I just felt that the movie delivered on the creep value that I did not anticipate whatsoever. Yeah. At first, the first half hour is a little bit sluggish because it's, these two friends, it's all set up. And then once the shit hits the fan, so to speak, it gets really weird real fast. And then they brought in Bill Oberst Jr., which I didn't expect, and he's like this.
He's in everything.
This
now.
guy is in everything.
But in this, he gives an actual performance.
And in this one,
really
in this one, he actually has a purpose that makes you think.
Yeah.
You're still thinking about everything that he has said throughout the rest of the movie.
Is that the French guy?
No, he's just an independent film actor out here.
I get a press release on him every day.
Oh, you mean in the movie?
Yeah.
It's the guy they found in the trailer.
He's
got
the film. The thing about that film, and it's high up on my list. It's number 6, and we had the directors in here, and
that's when I was on your show.
Yeah, of course.
Because I was in West Virginia at the worst convention ever.
That's right. I avoided that film, like I talked about on the show. I avoided like the play because I hated the Netflix artwork, and it was just a hand chained thing. And so I was like, God, I'm not watching this piece. And then and I think it was AJ kept saying, no, this is really good, and I trusted him on a couple others this year. Yeah. And I watched it, and it was just surprising at every turn. And I the main thing though was actually just like again and again the problem I'm having with horror this year, not so much, is just do I give a shit about the people on screen at all? Well, and I really like these two people.
That's the thing. I really like the two characters. And I can continue following them.
Yeah, exactly. You want them to survive. You want to see it go on.
And the other thing, too, is I like how directed the movie is. The movie is very direct because at the end, there's no real easy answers, but you're like, wait a minute, is it this? Yeah. And when I talk to them, they're like, yes, that's exactly what it is. I don't want to give it away, but I was like, oh, so this is really what type of movie this is. And they're like, yeah, there's no other meaning. There's no other layer. That's exactly what it is. And that's what, it's just the way they went about shooting it. And I was like, okay, that's very smart. I liked it.
Yeah, no, it is really surprising every turn. And Creep Factor, I agree with you, is like, it really is quite a moody little film. Mm-hmm. So I hope more people see it because of these kind of lists.
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix instant still.
It is on Netflix, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And they're shooting their next film, which looks really interesting. So something to look forward to next
year.
year.
The kid from Evil Dead is in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, cool.
Yep.
Clarke, you've had 20 minutes. Have you come up with a 10?
Yes. Great. But I just feel like I need to preface this real fast because a couple of my picks are commercial movies, which I'm sure...
Oh, we have them too.
I'm sure. Yeah. But this one is not going to be popular. So I'm just going to put that out there right now. My number 10 is The Purge. I really liked The Purge. I didn't love it. I know.
Everybody's
leaving. I'm never getting invited back again.
We're going to purge our cast of one now.
I just wanted to make friends, and then this happens. No, but I'm going to... Here's why. The reason I like it is because it is a short, compact little thing. It is, and I know that a lot of the criticism of it is that, it doesn't really give you what the trailer promises you, right? Everybody says it kind of just
or the concept.
The concept is the best thing, and it loses it.
Yes, which is fair. But I will say that I like the first. I really like the first 20 minutes, and I really like the last 20 minutes. The middle's fine. I don't really. I wasn't offended by it, but I really.
It starts to meander in the middle a little bit. It starts to lose its place with that little weird robot doll, and they basically gave them a mission, which was, hey, let's go. We need to get this guy from point A to point B and hide him. But then the sister's in that location. Right. It was just like, why are you doing all this? This is all meh.
The middle was definitely weird, but. I love the. I'm not going to say what it is, but I love the resolution. I love the final scene. I think it's really cool. I think it's very Twilight Zone. It felt like Blumhouse does Twilight Zone to me.
Yes.
And I like that a lot. So and I'm excited for the follow up as well. I think that they're going to give them more money from everything I've heard. I'm sure you guys know more about this than me, but we're going to actually get more of that society that they kind of promised us.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Which I fingers crossed. But and I'm also a big Blumhouse fan. I think I love what they do, and I love the opportunities that they give people, and so I like The Purge. And
I didn't hate it. It's not a film I hate.
I think the movie gets a bum rap.
I agree.
I really do. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it gets a bum rap, and I think it's just because of the execution of it. I mean, a lot of people have character issues, they have motivation issues, stuff like that. But like you said, the beginning is a great setup. The killers are pretty cool and creepy, and then that finale. I mean, like you said, it's a Twilight Zone-esque, Monsters of Do on Maple Street kind of esque thing, and it's like, okay, cool. I give you for something that's Hollywood. Yep. It's a good effort, man.
I think the problem with it, and the reason I don't think it's a good film, but I don't think it's bad, I think the concept is a great concept, and I think the problem is that they settled on doing a home invasion film. With a concept that really could have gone anywhere, could have been set in an office building with office work. But now the cool thing is, as a franchise, I would rather see people make more Purge movies than 90% of other franchises, because you can go still a lot of directions. So on that, I do give it a pass for sure. I just think like settling on, we'll do a home invasion, and he wasn't even targeted. Really, and not at the start. He's not even the target of the home invasion. Right. It's kind of coincidental, which is also kind of like, I wish it was somebody who he had fucked over. Right. Obviously, as the film develops, that kind of becomes part of it. But I do think it's an interesting film. It's just, it just fell short. So, but it's not saying that people should be angry about.
That's why it's 10 and like.
It's not Devil Inside. It's not like, what the? That's not even a movie. You know?
No, it's not Devil Inside. Okay, so that's my 10.
But that was my number 2.
Yeah, well, that was the year before, I think. Number 9, I'll have very little say because it's your next. Oh. And we just So for me, it's definitely. I think if I'd seen it at say South by or somewhere, or with a crowd, I saw it with almost no one in the theater. I really liked it, but I could tell that I probably would have kind of loved it if I'd seen it with a boisterous crowd. But I had similar issues. I liked some of the character setup. I really didn't like the guy. He was kind of the. I guess he would be like the third lead. It wasn't Bowen. It wasn't Swanberg. It was
the other guy.
The guy who I don't want to give away twists and stuff, but it just didn't do anything for me and didn't feel like they're kind of related. They're also all the same fucking age and they're all brothers and sisters. And you're like, what the fuck kind of. But all of that aside, I like the style. And I'll tell you what, man, I was singing the song, Here Comes the Magic. Looking for the magic more than anything this year. That song has been tripping through my head since it. So I think it's a really cool film, and it shows a lot of promise for those guys. They just need to it's something in the writing. They just need to. It's not bad writing. It just needs something. It needs a little something more heart in there or something. A
little something.
A little something. But it's worthy to be in there. I hope everyone sees it too.
My number 9 is All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which I initially saw a couple years ago because it came out. I have a multi-regional player, so I was able to get a.
You had that sweet British one. I did.
British one. Yeah. And I liked it. I mean, that's another one that's pretty hyped up as like this weird like John Hughes-esque slasher movie, but it was, it was really unique and interesting and had a cool look to it. And there's 2 or 3 twists. I don't know if they're meant to be twists, but there's 2 or 3 really interesting twists that kind of put it above what most slasher fare of that sort is. And it's an impressive debut from Jonathan Levine, who went on to do Warm Bodies and 50-50 and The Whackness and all these great films. I hadn't seen it in a couple of years, but I just got the Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray's got a brand new commentary with him. So it's really great because he starts out saying, hey, it's been like 7 years since I've seen this. It's going to be an interesting ride.
Nice.
And so he gives a lot of interesting insight into both rookie mistakes and stuff that because he watches it like, oh man, this is my first movie. Like I totally failed at this scare right here. This is terrible, but sorry. But then he also gives some fun insight, and I mean a lot of the people, Finding Amber Heard, that's like her first movie. One of the other guys, I'm not familiar with him. You were telling me, Anson Mount.
Yeah.
That was his first movie, and he was explaining how like he really didn't understand how like acting on a set worked, and he like walked him through it, and now he's like a big TV star or whatever. So it's a really cool movie. I strongly recommend it.
That one, I didn't know when that was going to be coming out. So I think that made my number one a couple of years ago. Because I was like, fuck it. I'm putting this on a list.
Twice.
And I rate that, man. It was close to me pulling number one. I got to say, and the reason is I had never seen anything about it. I knew the title.
On your list?
It's on my list. It's number 4.
Oh, okay.
But it came, I was debating because I liked it so much. Like when I started like a few weeks ago, first time ever, had never seen a trailer, had only seen stills, and somehow maintained like Dakota Sun. I was like, man, this is a great movie.
I've been bitching at you for years. I kept saying, I was like, this is going to be your favorite one ever, Elric. You're going to love this movie. Because I
shot
had
like
it
looked like a Terrence Malick shot film, but with John Hughes like humor, and it's also a kind of weird slasher, almost elephant type movie, all mixed together. I really liked it.
I wish I had the writer's name handy, but I thought the writer did an excellent job writing modern teens.
Yeah,
he did.
And I mean, and it's still, that's the thing, even though it's been on the shelf for years, it's still pretty it
feels relevant.
The one thing, and Jonathan Lehman mentions it, is there's one point where somebody looks at a text message and he's like, you wouldn't know that this film was on the shelf for 7 years except for that one fucking shot of the cell phone.
Right. Another reason not to shoot technology.
It's like one of
the flip phone.
That's
but hilarious. I'm really glad it finally came out, and the stories behind that. I think it was what was it, Vanity Fair? Somebody did a really interesting article charting all the different ownerships of that film since before it could come back and be released.
Yeah,
and it's a really worth seeking out if you can find it.
Is it in the current Vanity Fair?
No, it was like I saw it on Twitter. We'll look for it and we'll post it.
I gotta find it.
It was a really good one. I think it had like 5 or 6 owners in that time from when it got the Weinstein shut down and went back to them, and
it's I just want to touch on this really quick because this was the year that not only did we see Mandy Lynn come out, but we also saw Levine direct Warm Bodies, which came out at the beginning of the year, and I don't see many people talking about it because it came out so early on. But what did you guys think? Because I thought it was okay.
It's pretty good.
I mean, it's kind of like a harmless,
If I had been 14, I would have loved that movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. It would have just spoken to me at the time, and I would have thought it was the sweetest thing ever.
Yeah.
But now at 130
I know,
something, I'm kind of like...
And I sat through Twilight movies, and it scared me off, so I didn't go to it. I'm sure I'll like it. I didn't go because...
It's not like that at all. It's far better than I expected it to be.
Right.
Yep.
And actually, the book is fantastic. The book that it's based on.
Oh, really?
I mean, the book and the movie have a terrible ending. There's like no way around the ending to that, But yeah, I recommend reading the book after you see the movie. And I'm amazed that he was able to adapt that book into a movie. Okay. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
So,
Rebekah, number 9?
My number 9 is another one I argued with somebody about on Saturday, Evil Dead. And I know this was a very polarizing film where you either loved it or hated it. I've yet to talk to anybody who's like, it was okay.
I'm in the okay camp.
I'm in the middling camp
too.
Yeah.
Okay. I am corrected. I thought it was a great time. I loved it. I saw the big theatrical screening that I think all of us were at.
Yeah.
They did like a huge critical screening here in LA, and it was a packed house, and I was ridiculously pregnant there.
Oh, wow.
And
that's right.
Because as I was walking in, the publicist was like, I hope you go into labor here so we can put that on the poster. And it was just, but I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite films of the year. It was genuinely, and I can't say, I do have to say, everybody was like, oh, there's nothing to it. And I will say, it does not have much of a plot. It definitely, I mean, the plot
unlike the really, really intricate plot of Evil Dead.
Yeah,
I know, exactly.
Deep. Such a deep movie, Sam.
And people, I know that like the guys who were sitting behind Elric and I, at the end, they were making these comments like, well, that wasn't funny at all. Well, there was the original.
That was a choice.
You know what, though?
That's a choice.
I want to talk about that real fast because Evil Dead's on my list too. But I don't know if... when I think of Evil Dead, I think of the whole package. I think of the trilogy.
I think a lot of people do that too.
And so when I walked in, I was ready. I loved the Red Band trailer, and I was ready for them to like not cut away. You know what I mean? Like, and I dug that. But for me, by the end of it, I was like, well, this isn't fun. Like, to me, the tone was so serious. It felt serious.
It was. It was intense.
Yeah,
and that
it was very intense. And by the end of it, when it's literally raining blood, I was like, I'm exhausted.
Spoiler.
But that was awesome.
It rains blood.
No, and it was awesome. And I think, though, the reason that I can't quite say I fucking loved it, but I didn't dislike it. I saw it twice in the theater, actually. But I just had this really weird, like, I want to laugh, but it's not funny.
No.
But I want to, but it's very serious. And so when I start having fun, I'm
the
like,
hippie guy was kind of funny. The guy who started, he gives such a great performance in that. Lou Taylor Pulich kind of nails that film.
And I laugh at everything that happens to him, even though it's horrible.
Yeah, it's like a tonal thing. I just felt like I didn't, like, I wanted to laugh when the girl was cutting her arm off with the thing, with the little thing, but I was just like, well, that's not funny. The way this is done.
But that's intent, right, Ryan? I mean, that is like the intent of this film was to not be the other Evil Dead.
Because they wanted to be the scary.
There's no Ash. There's no Ash. It's not a girl Ash. It's just no Ash.
But the reason that it made my list at number 9 was if you want kill sequences, favorite film of the year. That was my best.
Yeah, this made my number 6. And listen, I mean, like, these are the bullet point things that I discuss when people are like, dude, you like that movie?
Right.
It's like, okay, one, it's fun. It is a fun fucking movie. It is a blast to sit through with a crowd. It's fun to watch by yourself because you're like hyper-analyzing the kills and going, oh, that's really great. Yeah. It offers a little bit more not emotional, but just a little bit more character substance.
And there's a reason for them to be there, which I like.
Which people like immediately jumped on. You're like, why is there a reason? Well, why not? You know, this is what we do.
Yeah.
So to have this girl go out into the cabin because she's going to go cold turkey because she's a drug addict. It's just like, I see this movie as the worst cold turkey experience of anyone's life. Because not only she goes in to this thing and then she becomes possessed and then she comes out the other side completely different. And that is called a character arc. But, you know, who knows? Maybe she'll just go and walk through the woods and go right to the nearest town and score some like massive meth or something like that. But
can't wait for her to explain what happened.
But it's just a fun movie. And again, I think people are like way too hard on this movie. Way too hard.
I think they're comparing
it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous looking movie.
For me, it's number 7, but that's only because I'm making a list and we show something about ourselves in the list. It's, if I'm really honest, like really dig deep, the most fun I had watching a movie this year was Evil Dead. In terms of in a theater, I had more fun, and it reminded me of why I loved horror movies.
And that's why I went to go see it 3 times theatrically, because I saw it with a new crowd and new friends.
And it was exciting and fun.
The category that we had, the fave thing that you saw on screen this year, that was one of mine, just because I saw it with all of you guys and you know the rest of everybody in LA that we know, and it was just so much fun to watch on screen. And it was, I mean, there was enough squeamish moments that, you know, it was a good crowd reaction.
We watch a lot of horror films, and so a lot of kills and things you don't hardly even blink. I watch a Saw film, I'm not even going to blink. But in this film, I literally shuddered many times. That means that the director knows how to create a visceral kill, which is really lacking in horror films. Like every nail gun, I'm going, ooh, the biggest jump of my whole year was the guy hitting his head on the toilet. And I remember going, whoa! Like, and that's a fucking toilet. That's not even like, it's not upping the ante. Funny. So to me, it was impressive on that level. But you know, it is funny that it almost makes you're kind of shy to go, well, I loved it, but you know, there's other smarter films out there. But no, fuck it, it's just a great film.
I giggle at the gore gags. I mean, that's just inherent in me. I mean, I laugh at that stuff because I love the over the top nature. Like, people sit when we go to press screenings for horror movies, colleagues who are not into horror will sit near me because it'll alleviate any fears they have of seeing a horror movie by themselves or seeing, you know. So they sit near me knowing that I'm going to be giggling my ass through it, letting them know it's okay to laugh or have some fun with it. But yeah, this movie is just fun, man. It's just a blast.
Do you think if it came out, say, a few months before Cabin in the Woods, it would have been taken more serious, or it's just a connection to Evil Dead?
Dude, the movie made so much money. I mean, that had I don't think it had any impact. I
just mean in terms of people we know going, oh, I've seen this played out, or they're mad. Maybe, I think it's a nostalgic thing they're mad about.
If it wasn't Cabin in the Woods, they would just be holding it next to the original Evil Dead trilogy anyway. I mean, that's the thing. It's
also the kind of thing, too. That's a great example to me of when you see a reboot or a remake or reimagining or whatever you want to call it, and you go, why did this have to be called Evil Dead? Like,
Well, I mean, it's about possession in a cabin. It's got all this. It's the same concept.
I get that, but I just... You know, if it had, I don't know, if it had been in a completely original thing with a different title, I wouldn't have. Yeah, I wouldn't have.
Well, even that the character that Shiloh played, he was essentially what Ash was in the first one, because Ash isn't Ash in the original Evil Dead.
Right. Yeah.
2 really quick things I want to say. The thing that I'm envious about Elric was your new thing is you avoid trailers for everything.
Yeah, I didn't watch the Red Band.
He went into Evil Dead completely blank.
Yeah, it was completely blank.
And the problem with me is I liked it the first time, but I was disappointed, and the reason being is because A, A, there were at least 3 things in the trailer that weren't in the movie. And that's distracting only because like a certain character will be out of the movie, like either dead or disappeared. And all I'll keep thinking about is, but wait, that shot with him and the chainsaw didn't happen yet, so he's got to come back. And then when it does it, you're like, oh, that sucks. That's not there. So that's number one. And then number 2 is like, you just can't go into a remake without your initial viewing is comparing it to the original.
Totally.
Like,
that makes sense.
I always enjoy a remake better the second time because you're like, oh, okay, that's how they're going to do that this time. That's how they're going to do it this time.
Sean Keller, who listens to the show and has been a guest, I remember he was part of the group who went the first night and hated it.
Yep.
He wrote recently to me, I think, on Facebook, and he said, I just saw it again with my kids and thought it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. And so I think that's part of it.
Presentation is really important because when we all saw it, and I know a lot of people are like, oh no, but it has to be a good movie or whatever. We all saw it opening night a second time, and we saw it at a kind of shitty theater, and the sound sucked.
Yeah.
It sounds beautiful.
I don't know one person at that screening of our group that liked it.
No, they all
and I was
hated
like, you don't understand. Like, it's supposed to, the whole package, it's supposed to be really loud and
great score too.
Yeah.
Even if it was
amazing.
If it was louder, I wouldn't have liked it. It still sucks. And I'm like, the presentation wasn't what it should have been.
Yeah, that's why I saw it the third time because
you're like, wait, I got to be sure.
Because no, it's because we saw it with the crowd that didn't like it, and they were such like negative Nancy's wet rags about it. And then I was like, F this, I'm going to go with another group of friends and go see it with them, and they all loved it. So I was like, yeah, that was fun.
Do we know before we leave? Do we know if that universe is continuing anytime soon, like a part 2 with that actress, or
who
no one
knows?
knows?
I don't believe anything any of those guys say.
Stay tuned for a PopFix episode with myself and Evan Dixon and Aaron Darling.
Yep, we just shot a segment about that.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Ryan, 9?
No.
We're still on 9?
No, we're on number 9, but no, that was yours. Mine is Grabbers. The creature feature from Ireland.
I put that as my number 3. That was pretty high for me.
This is something that I saw on VOD. I kind of like dismissed it when it first came out. And my God, what a fun movie.
It's so good.
It's such a blast. Have you guys seen it?
I haven't. I think it's like kind of a horror comedy, right?
It's a horror comedy. It's like
comedy.
Tremors. It's like Tremors.
Yeah.
It's
But
basically like
the monster effects are fucking
they're
awesome
cool.
in it.
So imagine, what is it? I'm trying to make an allusion to this video game that was like a giant starfish thing, but the creatures are these giant starfish things, and they suck your blood out. But they won't suck your blood out if you're completely hammered. You need to be drunk. You need to be pissed drunk.
It was 2.0.
Yeah.
You have to be like really drunk.
So
you have to be really drunk.
drunk.
There's a point where it dawns on the entire town what they need to do. So they all convene at the local pub, and they all get pissed drunk. And then the monsters attack, and then the monster's like, what?
Seems like a more interesting version of Feast. It seems like it's got more, reason to be there.
Yeah, it's like a mix of Tremors and Feast.
That's cool.
But the script is really smart, and the characters in it. I mean, they
have a history. They have they have either something haunting them or something that bothers them. They're well-rounded 360-degree characters.
It's a small Irish island. It's an island, so they can't get off to get help or anything. And just so well written and shot.
It's a lot of fun.
It sucks because it came at the end of my burnout. So it was last night at about 1 a.m. and I'd gotten through all of them, and I started it, and I really liked it. I saw about 20 minutes, and I was too tired. And I said, all right, if I love it, I'll come back and finish it tonight.
Yeah.
I loved it because it was much higher up on my list. It's number 3. But what I found fascinating is that the budget on it was $7 million. And we don't have $7 million horror films anymore in the U.S. I actually interviewed Joe Dante last week, and he was complaining that we only have $100 million or, $1 million. And there's nothing in between. But, for me, it was the films from the 80s because it's a mid-range. Things aren't, exploding over the top. But it was just a really solid horror film with great effects.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
Cool. Yeah, Ireland and the UK are starting to make good films.
Well, they're starting to get filmmakers who are hungry that want to tell. They want to tell stories. But what's great is they have a great support system because their film commissions,
the lottery systems. Yeah.
So.
Kieran Foy from Citadel, and obviously there's a lot of UK. UK's burning it up. We'll talk about that later.
Clarke, do you have a 9?
We'll call my next one Evil Dead. I didn't since I didn't rank mine. I only ranked number 1 and 2. We'll just call it Evil Dead. But Evil Dead was on my list.
Fair.
Cool.
Elric, 8.
All right. 8. Lords of Salem.
It's my number 8 as well.
Boom. What I'll say about Lords of Salem is there could not.
I see Clarke smile. I see that smile because I know it's coming.
Lords of Salem. If you had asked me before all this happened, when it first, I didn't see it on its release. Because it was the overwhelming response was like, oh my God, what trash. I'm not a Rob Zombie fan in the first place, even though I think Devil's Rejects is great. So I was like a very easy film for me to avoid, and I could have probably skipped it altogether. I don't know who it was where I heard something that was like, actually, it's interesting. I think some of the imagery I saw suddenly, even though I don't watch trailers, I was like, oh shit, that looks like Fulci or something. And I went to it, and all I'll say is like, if somebody had handed me a VHS of that film without Rob Zombie being part of it, and I was 16, I would have thought it was the best film of the year. Yeah. No, and that's not to say there are so many problems with acting, and there's problems with story. But that film is about atmosphere, it's about imagery, and it's about just seeing something that's batshit crazy that doesn't get made anymore. And without him being Rob Zombie, that probably couldn't have been made by an independent filmmaker in that sense. So if that's the trade-off, then I'll take it, because I really loved what I saw. And it was just atmospheric and weird.
Yeah, he'll say, Kubrick this, and other great filmmakers that. But I'm like, I saw this movie, I went, that's a Fulci film right there. Yeah. That is a 1980 Fulci film.
Yeah, that was the only clear one for me.
It has its plot meanders, and it goes all over the place, and it doesn't necessarily have a third act. But boy, there are all these like you said, visuals that are strung together with just blood and bone, and it's just so much fun.
Jodorowsky in that.
Oh yeah, Jodorowsky. Yeah.
Where it's like a scene, and then we just cut to masturbating for no reason, and then we go back to the scene.
That's true. Yeah. But we're also like Fulci apologists, because like it's true. We go back and watch Fulci films carefully, and like literally 60% of them aren't good of the actual film. But then the 40% that's good in it is so interesting that you'll always defend it. And so I feel like this is very much the same thing. Had it not been Rob Zombie and had been like, I'm Joe something, my first movie, we'd all be going, fuck, this is something to look forward to,
If I could have plucked Sherry Moon out of it,
exactly. I would too.
I was just about to give Sherry a little love. I mean, as someone who's supposed to be playing this kind of like former drug addict, radio DJ, living in a small town kind of thing, she was fine.
It's believable for her, but it could have been a better actor. A better actor, and it would be a better movie for sure. But she can play that character, sure. But she's just not a good actress. She's so there's that. But it was a cool movie, man. I find it, and I also love how polar. I mean, I find it really interesting that I remember posting and feeling really bad that I just liked it because I hadn't heard anyone. And then as soon as I did, it was like Brian Collins, all these people go, oh no, we all love it too. And I'm like, okay.
I think we were all quiet about it at first.
I know, it's weird.
I mean, I know that Lords of Salem for me, when I first saw it, I was like, okay. Yeah. And then it started to process with me a little bit, and I just digested like the soundtrack and the visuals and all that stuff. And then I saw it a second time, and I was like, no, I definitely like this movie. Yeah. It's cool.
And I love the hook. I love the record thing. I think that's so cool that this old record gets played and all this stuff starts happening. That's a cool hook.
I wish there was just a little bit of an urgency that was driving to a third act that had a little bit more punch. I mean, the third act does have like that punch, but it didn't. It just felt like it was just kind of like on its own pace. It was like it peaked and then it just like evened out, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, if it had a real screenwriter, it would have been. That's what stops it from being a great film. Yeah, like there's a great film in there with all the tropes, but it's not.
That was one of my biggest complaints, is that it felt like Rob Zombie was shooting his first draft. And it's not that it was a bad script. It's just there were so many lines that I would have cut, and that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Why would she say that? And it was just, I would have tightened it up so much to make room for something.
I want to pick up the book, because there's an adaptation.
I read. I was doing a lot of research about this movie over the last couple of days, and I read. Was it Brian Collins? It was his piece, talking about the novel, and
which was written after the movie.
Yes.
We gave a copy of trivia.
Was it not by Rob?
I have one copy.
I think I forget the other gentleman's name, but
so it fills in some of the gaps.
Yes,
okay, maybe that'd be interesting.
It does.
I had a very negative reaction to this movie. Right. But you know what? I will own up to it, because I saw it. I only saw it once. I saw it at 9 a.m. as like a FEARnet employee screening. And we were all like delirious and like, what the hell are we watching? And I like Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. I like him as a person. Like anytime he does an interview, I think he's one of the most captivating people. Like
I agree. 1,000%.
He talks about stuff with such an interesting way that I always respect him, and I want to like his stuff more than anything. But my initial reaction, I did not like it. And it's because, I mean, it's a beautiful movie and I like what he was doing with it, but I felt like he was aping all those filmmakers that are like Kubrick and Jodorowsky and all that stuff. And also like kind of, I mean, you're initially thinking like, I want the plot to go somewhere, but I mean, now under the context of like, oh, well, if it's kind of like a Fulci thing and that doesn't really go anywhere either, I can see that. I got to give it another chance. I just didn't like it when I saw it because I had a different expectation for what I wanted out of it.
I think that a lot of
I was like, I want him to go back to Devil's Rejects, and it wasn't like that at all.
I think that was a big problem. I know a lot of people have a problem with the movie in general, but I think the expectation of a Rob Zombie movie based on Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses, when you walk in and you get Lords of Salem, it is not like his other two movies.
Yeah, and I'll revisit it eventually, because Sean Keller actually liked it a lot, and he's like, it's more of a Halloween movie than his Halloween movies. Like, it just feels more like that. So I'm like, you know what? I will visit that next Halloween instead of his Halloween movies and check it out.
I don't know what people want from Rob. I mean, honestly, like if you grew up with his stuff all your life and like, you know, you watched his stuff, you listened to his music, you saw his art, you saw what he pours into his, I mean, like every CD he releases, everything is him. It's all him,
that's
you
true.
know? And this is not unusual for him to do. I mean, like I see Lords of Salem, like this is definitively Rob's stuff.
Yeah.
Halloween is the only.
I want him to have a really great script that he didn't write because I think he's a really good director.
See,
and
that's
he's really
the problem.
Good visually.
Yeah. So
but I don't think he's a strong writer on any sense. His music or anything. Like I like his songs, but none of them are great.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe he needs something that like somebody wrote and then he could put his own little polish on.
Yes.
But he's one of those guys. He's one of those artists that we see today who I haven't seen yet, who will deviate from the I won't direct other people's stuff. It's got to be mine. I need to put 100%. I mean, Adam Green is the same way.
Yeah.
Adam won't direct something that somebody else wrote, you know, unless I don't know about his new movie, but I mean, like I remember
his new one's all about him.
Yeah.
Remember?
But yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right, where do we leave
off? We're at number 8. 8 was Lords of Salem.
Me.
Clarke, where does that fall on your list? Is
Lords of Salem?
Yeah, is that
I was
a number?
waiting. Yeah, it does. It's my favorite.
Okay, so I think we should hold that. So when we talk about like, why it's your number one.
Okay, cool.
But I think that's great.
All right, I'm going to try to move this a little quicker. I was on 8 here. My number 8 is Bad Milo. Because I love horror comedies more than anything. I had not seen any trailers or anything for it. I ended up hanging out with Darren Bousman, and he just rented it on VOD. It was like, oh, let's watch a movie, and he picked that. And I mean, essentially, it's produced by the Duplass brothers.
Their editor of all their films.
Their editor, directed it, Jacob Vaughn, and then it stars Ken Marino from The State, Stephen Root.
Wait, back it up. Ken Marino from Kenny fucking Powers.
Yeah.
This season, he was on fire.
Yes.
Come on,
one of the best seasons of any show this season.
And Party Down.
Yeah.
I mean, all you need to know is it's a horror-ish comedy where he's got an ass monster. It's a cute
it looked like a Frank Henenlotter thing.
He's adorable.
It's a cute little demon that comes out of his ass. And and the first time that Milo makes his appearance is him on the toilet struggling for like 7 minutes to get it out. And Darren and I could not fucking breathe. I was laughing so hard at that scene.
Anyone else seen it? No one?
Yeah, I think it's really great. I think it's a fun 80s throwback.
Oh, good.
And one of the better horror comedies to come out.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right. Definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Becca, number 8.
My number 8, Big Ass Spider.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that. That was on my list to see.
I love to hear Mendez Love.
I know. And it was one that kind of shocked me because I wasn't expecting to like anything called Big Ass Spider. But for me, it was just a fun film. It didn't have an agenda. It didn't have some like deeper message it was trying to put forth. It was just a fun film.
I've got it on my just missed out, but great humor. But that's the kind of movie I should hate. You know, it's not my kind of movie at all. And so when I went to it, I was like, oh, this is actually funny. And Mike actually found a way to make a good movie out of something that shouldn't be good. You know?
I just like that you have that written down. Just missed out, but great humor.
Just in case I
holds
forgot.
up a piece of paper that's got like all this stuff on
I
it.
could forget. You never know.
All right. Mine was Lords of Salem.
Okay. So we're on the same.
Yeah, number 8.
All right.
Clarke?
Since I didn't rank mine, I'm gonna throw one out. Another unpopular one out there. No one from Killer POV who listens to Killer POV is going to come over to the Bloodcast. They're gonna be like, I hate that girl. I really liked Mama.
No.
I like ghost stories.
Look at Elric's face. He's like,
wow.
explain yourself.
Let's all just hold on. Let's all just hold on for a second. I like Mama because I like ghost stories.
Like CGI?
No.
Wait a minute. You just said you like Mama.
Hold on.
Let her talk.
Here's the thing is that I could not for the life of me understand why they did not do a practical creature.
Totally.
Yes.
That sucked. That made me really sad because it wasn't even like sometimes she was.
It's too long on screen, right?
Yes.
They held on it for far
They
too
just
long.
kept it there.
Yeah, it's tough.
And look, this is not like the definitive my definitive movie of the year by any means, but I like old-fashioned, creepy, whatever. It definitely falls apart in the third act. I'm not sitting here being like, really? I thought it was all perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But I loved the first 60 minutes, and then the finale. Made me sad. It totally got me, like with the little girls and the whole thing. And I think it was a decent movie, and I think I want to see more movies like that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I have to agree with you that
I remember you liked it.
loved
Yeah, I remember you said
where
you
it
liked
went, but I have been bitching to no end about that damn monster because it killed it for me. And it was just like, it destroyed the movie.
In defense of the effects, some of Mama is practical with CG augmentation. Just saying that.
Are you serious?
Yes, because I was on set and we talked to the director. No, some of Mama is CG augmentation, especially the end. That's puppet work. But they're adding CG.
Then it got ruined. But
that's when you don't have a healthy balance of the two.
It's a shame
because it just looked so unpractical.
There are merits to Mama. I mean, I was just watching on HBO this morning. One, Jessica Chastain's look, hot. Two, the ghost story. I like that it took risks and it had child peril.
Yeah.
I just like the overall vibe of it, but I don't like the fairy tale aspect of it.
I do
that was
like
the thing.
I do like the fairy tale.
It's just that's just like a matter of taste. I just don't have that taste for it.
And that's sort of when I see, something with Guillermo del Toro's fingerprints on it. I go expecting that fairy tale element, and I like that. That's one of the things that keeps me coming back for more of his films. So, I actually appreciated that part of it as well.
Cool. Nice. I haven't seen it yet, but the short film that's based on is scary as hell. It's great.
It's cool. Not the movie, not Mama the feature, but the short.
Yeah, the 2-minute short or whatever.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's on YouTube if you want to find it.
It's definitely worth watching.
Mama's by no means a terrible movie. It's a good movie. It's just ruined by certain things. The thing that ruined it even more, and this is a big thing about acting, is like, look, Jessica Chastain's basically one of the best actresses working today. She was put into a role where she couldn't be less believable when she's holding the bass. Like that, when we talk about method, and I was like, Jesus, I believe her holding a gun more than I believe her holding a gun.
And Jamie Lannister was a little goofy.
Right.
And the whole, look, it's not perfect, but
it's not. But the world of it was nice, and if it hadn't, if the CG hadn't taken me out, there's also one sequence which is hilarious. There's a psychiatrist, and he's going to go out and research, but he chooses to go out at fucking midnight.
Yes.
Like he could have just gone to sleep, woken up the next morning. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like
he loves his job.
Yeah, that was too much. But it's not a bad movie.
All right,
number
7.
Let's keep rolling. And in defense, you don't have to speed. I can see already in Rob's voice that he wants to speed. But here's the thing: a lot of them are going to start repeating. So we're going to go. So calm. I know you want to go fast. Okay, so Evil Dead. It's number 7. So we don't have to even talk about it. Yeah. We know why we like it.
Wow.
See how quick we're going to
go? My number 7, John dies at the end.
That's on my list.
That's my number 2.
Loved it. And
my last year list.
But it released in January.
That's 2013. It was in VOD last year, but it was in theaters in January, and I caught it in January. Yeah. And it was a really great theatrical experience. The reason I like it is because, I love Don Coscarelli, obviously. I love that. He's of the Masters of Horror. He's actually, I didn't realize this until the screening. He's actually like the youngest of the bunch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like he made Phantasm when he was 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing that you could have told me that John died, there's, these guys get older and they kind of, I don't want to say lose it, but they lose touch with, the pulse of teenage, what teenagers like.
Not Wes Craven, remember?
Yeah, of course. My soul to take.
My soul to take.
It's fang time, guys.
But the thing about John dies at the end, there's some kind of enthusiasm and urgency to it where you could have been like, hey, this is the debut feature of a 23-year-old hotshot director. Definitely. And I would have believed it. And the fact that it's Coscarelli makes it even more impressive. The fact that he found Chase Williamson, who's never done a movie before, and he's like a terrific lead.
Yep.
And Sean Keller walked out of it and he's like, oh, it's Bill and Ted's Naked Lunch. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's super cool. And it's fun when you revisit it. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it doesn't have to. It's just thoroughly entertaining.
I rewatched it again yesterday, actually, in preparation, and I agree with you 100%. The idea that this isn't a kid the idea that this isn't Edgar Wright directing this is shocking to me.
And then Bubba Hotep, it's just like the fact that he's making those choices.
Yeah,
he's still. I think he's the most creative of all. Yeah, I think Wes Craven definitely was the most creative of his generation, and he just will always be amazing for that. But it obviously gets harder. You hit 70 years old.
Exactly.
Your mind doesn't work in the same way anymore anyway. But I think Coscarelli is still just as rich as ever. Maybe he benefits from not getting to make as many films as he'd want to. I'm sure he'd be pumping them out every couple of years. And so
I feel that.
I'm sure that it goes back to the budget thing.
Yeah.
100 million, 1 million, and very little in between there.
Right. So I don't know what that would have been. That would have been over $1 million. It might have been like 3 or something.
Yeah, probably $3 million.
It felt like at the end it's rushed a little bit. But that film was I think my number 2 last year. I'd seen it at South by and I loved it. So if I had realized it was part of this year, it'd be like right up the top. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Becca, number 7.
My number 7, The Conjuring.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have great deals to say about it. It was just a really solid horror film. I loved the scares and it kept me going. It was a little bit campy when the witch came back at the end and she had this whole plot to lure people back into the house. lost me a little bit there. But otherwise, yeah, it scared the hell out of me.
What do you mean by plot? Because it's true.
No, taking it from that, I don't know if I agreed with the witch's like devilish motives to lure people back into the house. That was a little bit much for me, but it was a solid horror film. So.
But James Wan proved that you could make like a classic. I mean, it's not only classic horror film that came out this year that will be 30, 50 years from now will be in like people's top 10 of all time.
Yes.
It's one of the best classic horror films ever.
We just had this conversation on the Bloodcast about movies that are what makes horror last a long time.
Yeah, that had it.
And I really, really believe that The Conjuring is still going to be scary.
It's an old school studio pick, and that's what's so strong about it.
It's actually my number 2.
Yeah, it's right up there for me. Yeah, same.
Conjuring is my number 4.
Oh, wow.
3 for me.
Yeah, so my number 7 is Kiss of the Damned.
Hells yeah.
Ooh, sexy.
That's my number 5.
Yeah. It hits all the right erotic beats. And I mean, like, listen, this is kind of like if anybody else had done this type of movie, we would have like turned our noses at it. But Zan Cassavetes brings a good vision to it. I like Milo Ventimiglia as an actor. I think he's a cool guy. I'm watching him now in Mob City and seeing him like just chew up the scenery. But, I mean, it has everything you need. The girls are exotic. The eroticism is just dripping off the screen.
It's direct, man. You feel it.
Yeah. I mean, like that whole, like
the sauna scene.
There's so much stuff. The
shower scene, the door scene.
Yeah, kissing in the door. That was the best.
But even like the video store scene, when they first meet and they're standing in the rain, and it's like, oh yeah, this is cool. You know
what's funny about it? It's like how people say it's like a Gene Roland film. I'll go one further. It's better than a Gene Roland film. That's why it's a good movie.
Because
I don't like Gene Roland films, but this was like Daughters of Darkness.
Yeah, that's the closest.
That's the kind of stuff.
I mean, the first 10 minutes is a Gene Roland film, and then but things actually happen in this.
But what I like too is that it finds time for these like really pretentious beats, where it's like these hoity-toity vampires all sitting around enjoying their parties, talking about life, and it's like, again, if anybody else had done it, I would have just flipped my finger at it. But by that point, it had gotten so much I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It had already won me over, so I was like, all right, I'll accept this. This is goofy and whatever, and I didn't know. It didn't really stick the landing at the end for me. I thought everything was too tidy. It was just kind of like I wanted more higher stakes, so to speak. But it was just like, oh yeah, this is we're good now. We're going to go off, and I don't want to ruin it, but it just cleaned itself up too much.
That's the weird thing, because it's not like completely original, and it doesn't add anything to the vampire mythology.
Right.
But again, there's not much of a threat really. It's just stylistically, she pulled it all together to the direction, the acting, music, probably one of the best soundtracks of the year.
Yeah, one of the best for sure.
It's
it just wrapped itself up too nicely at the end, but whatever, it was fun.
And Roxanne Mesquita is just like, I don't know, man. There's no one hot on her. She's a fat girl. I remember seeing Fat Girl like 10 years ago and just going, oh my God, who is this girl?
How can you find anything attractive in Fat Girl?
Because she's the most, she's just like stunning.
Sexy movie
It's
ever.
unsexy, but she's stunning. We have a different perspective. But Simon does. She plays kind of the evil sister, and it's also, I think it actually nails sibling rivalries. And imagine your sibling rivalries, right, between two girls, always going for the same guys. Imagine that for eternity.
Yeah.
So if you have to always compete with your fucking sister.
Wait, is Roxanne the brunette?
I
like the redhead.
Yeah, they're both great, but I just love that. Imagine having to put up with her. Oh, 100 years ago she stole the fucking dude from me, and now she's back. That bitch. It's like I love that. It's like
it's pretty amazing.
But I also thought Zahn, her approach was just great, and it didn't feel like a fan film. And Rob suffers from that a bit. This didn't feel at all like a fan film, even though she's clearly pulling all these influences, which is cool. It's interesting, but it may be a little tighter ending. Good stuff.
Clarke?
The next one that I'll talk about is We Are What We Are. I really liked it. Cool. I liked it a lot.
Jealous.
That's on my I haven't seen it list.
It's I won't say too much about it because it's I don't want to say that it's slow because I think that makes it sound like it's bad. I think it takes its time. It's one of those movies that you just need to sit and watch. And
had you seen or heard anything about the other film?
Yes, actually, I talked to somebody who had seen the other film and didn't love it.
Okay.
And I'm actually curious about it because I like a lot of Spanish language.
It's really good.
It's really good. Yeah.
It's unnerving. It's an unsettling. It's not a nice film to watch. You kind of go,
I really do. Now I have a question for you. Is the in the Spanish or the original version? Is it
It's a mother. It's a mother looking after the kids, not a father. Dies.
It's
a father.
See,
the father's out of the
but
storyline.
It's also a pretty slow burn.
Yeah. I do want to see that. I'm curious about it. But I really liked the visuals, the direction. I thought was very good. I will say the when the trailer came out, I got this I knew nothing about it. And so I'm watching the trailer and I'm kind of thinking to myself, and you actually tweeted about this, Ryan, about the studio trying to keep the cannibalism quiet.
Yeah.
You watch the trailer and you go, what is this? Like, you kind of go, is this a horror movie? Is this a thriller? Is this a drama that has these, but it's got these weird undertones. I can feel something weird going on. And there's a shot where the book flips and there's the word about Kuru disease.
Yeah.
And so I Googled it. And then I went, oh. And then I rewatched the trailer and I was like, awesome. Because if you don't know, you're like, something's going on here. But then when you do know, it's all these hidden little things. It was really cool. So, also, I would be curious to talk to you guys once you see the movie, if you feel like it has anything in common with Stoker. Because I watched Stoker after I saw We Are What We Are, and I think they have a lot of similarities.
Cool.
I think.
I actually I was going to comment on the remake versus the original. I actually think the remake is a stronger piece than the original. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The original has some issues. I think that, again, it's like one of those, it's an acquired taste kind of thing. I think it plods along. I felt no connectivity, no connection to any of the characters. Here, having the father in the role with the two daughters and so on, I don't know. It just drew me in a little bit more. Again, this is another movie that it plods along. It is slow. It's a slow burn. But that finale, I think what my criticism on the original is that it didn't. I think that they kind of screwed up the third act, whereas this one, you actually feel an explosiveness to it. I mean, it really goes for it. And this was one of my fringe top 10. Like, it would probably be like number 12.
I really liked it. I really like it a lot. I think it's worth seeing. And
did you see it in theaters or recently?
I saw it at
I wish I had.
Yeah.
It's one of the regrets I had.
Have you seen any of the director Jim Mickle's earlier stuff?
Because
I love him as a director.
I loved Mulberry Street.
Mulberry Street's his first one. Then he did
Stakeland.
Stakeland.
I think he's one of those directors that's a good, a great actor, great actor's director.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. He delivers some really good looking pieces, some beautiful looking scenes, but when it comes to performances, I think he really takes the time with his actors.
He just finished a movie with Michael C. Hall. I'm totally stoked to see that.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Cool.
Don Johnson.
Yeah.
And,
What's it called?
And Sam Shepard. Cold in July. It's based on a book, a novella by Joe Lansdale.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
What are we up to? 6?
Number 6.
Elric, 6.
6 is a quick resolution.
All right.
We've talked about it.
6 for me is actually a movie I saw at a film festival like 3 years ago.
I can't believe that's on your list.
It is because it's Casadega, which was directed by Anthony de Blasio. Whoa, all these sighs. Oh my God. Jesus
I haven't seen it, so I am not sighing at all.
Rob likes his movies Lifetime. This Clarke is a Lifetime original horror film.
You know what?
And you know what? I told
Clarke,
Anthony
you
de
can
Blasio
borrow my Casadega because you have taste, obviously.
Ryan also calls What Lies Beneath Lifetime, which is
It's a Lifetime horror film.
because it's a good movie. Don't listen to
that one
Ryan.
is definitely
Whatever.
Followed by Gothica and
How dare you?
I don't mind Gothica.
He brought Gothica into this room.
Oh my God.
Okay, let's.
All right, so Rob, your
not-
defense of Casadega.
It's not Lifetime at all. I mean, look, I haven't seen it since the. All right, wait. Hold on. I have my memory of it, so let me get
Ryan's
my point
laughing.
out. 'Cause Ryan can't even contain himself here.
That's funny.
No, I mean it's on VOD now. It comes out technically December 31st, so it came out this year. Anthony de Blasio's first movie was Dread, based on the Clive Barker story, which I think
great debut.
It's a kick-ass debut. It's really great. I've only seen it once because it's so unnerving, disturbing. I can't sit through Dread again. I don't think I'll ever see it again. But it's a great movie. And what impressed me about Casadega, at least when I initially saw it, was it didn't feel like a second movie to me. It felt like a third or fourth. Like the level, just because like the first 5 or 10 minutes, the way he sets up the character, the lead character is deaf. She's a teacher. She's deaf, and she suffers this horrible tragedy where she loses her little sister in the opening scenes. And the way that it's all kind of shot and explained, I thought it was like, oh wow, it looks like he jumped ahead in terms of craft. And then from there, it's like there's all these alternating storylines. Like she kind of starts seeing this ghost. Like she goes into this town, Casadega, to kind of get away from everything and start over. She starts seeing this ghost, and it's connected to this weird like serial killer that they call like the Geppetto killer, because he like chops up girls into little pieces and then puts them back together. So like that's kind of freaking cool, you know. But anyway, I like that it had all these different stuff going on in it, and I like that movie quite a bit.
The puppet element was kind of cool for me. The rest of the movie, not so much.
Can I ask why the name? What does the title mean? I don't like.
It's the name of the. It's the name of the place that it takes.
It's one of the most psychic. It's one of the most psychic. I'm trying to find the word. I'm not being able to. I need more coffee. It has like the highest population of psychics or something like that. Or psychic phenomena in town.
It's very
psychic energy.
Charged.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know my issue with that. It's just like the whole thing with Kellen Coleman's deaf girl character and all that stuff. It was just silly. And then like they shoehorn in this love interest who doesn't go anywhere and he just disappears halfway through the movie, and then it's just blah.
Well, I like that. I like the love interest because it's like he's gonna get her back in terms of like, oh, I believe you, I'm going to help you out. And then he just bounces because of his family. And I'm like, oh, that was unexpected. Like, listen, I have an ex-wife.
So what was the whole point of him being there? Because it doesn't further the plot along if he just bounces.
She thought she had somebody that was going to help her.
That's bullshit when they're trying to commit to something like that. All right. Well, Rebekah.
Number 6, I'm going to get shit for probably, mostly from Dick Grunert, Dark Skies.
Whoa! I know. I want to hear about this.
I
kind of liked it too.
That movie.
Ryan just left.
I loved that movie. First off, aliens for me are like one of the only things that actually scares me a little. Because I don't believe
you're so from the South.
I know. Thanks for... Wait a minute.
In Virginia, she's here.
No, I mean, like, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't really believe in monsters, witches, things of the supernatural nature. You know, I've never been really threatened by home invasion or anything like that. So that just really never really hits me. Aliens, for some reason, do. It's the one thing that I'm kind of like, well, I just don't know.
Wow.
So, Dark Skies, I thought that it was just a really underrated film. It was definitely flawed. I mean, like, the aliens were a little CG'd at moments. But I watched that film.
Wait, were there aliens in the version you saw?
They're
I saw no aliens.
Only at the end. No, like, they're really shadowed, but they're very stretched out. Yeah.
I got it. I didn't even see the movie, and I got it as a joke.
But I definitely, it was one that they'd invited us all to the press junket, and Stacey Lane Wilson had emailed me and been like, don't even bother going. It's the worst film ever. So I didn't go. And then I got the screener copy and I watched it, not really knowing anything about it, and was shockingly scared during some of it. So
it just dawned on me that Josh Hamilton, who's the father in it, he's the witch hunter from American Horror Story Coven. Interesting. Yep. I like the idea that it's an alien invasion plot or an alien abduction plot wrapped in the tropes of a haunted house movie.
Yeah. Yep. They really sold that thing as Poltergeist.
Right.
They really tried to sell it.
It just didn't go to places. I like moments of that movie, but it doesn't, I mean, I'm not saying it's a terrible film by any means, but it has great moments in it. It just needs that director, Scott Stewart, I think his name is, he's got these great ideas. He just can't pull them off. I mean, like in a cool way.
And the end of it falls apart completely.
Yes.
It goes on way too long. There's like 4 different endings to it. But I love the angle that it's an alien film, but it's not on some grandiose epic scale.
I do agree.
It's
I do
all
like that.
inside this one family.
Yeah.
It never leaves their house. And I love that element.
The lost time elements that Kerry Russell's character faces. It's all cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a promise right now that any film that anyone has seen in here who loves it and it's on their list, I will watch if I haven't seen it. So I will watch Casadega. I will watch Dark Sky. If it's worth mentioning,
Can
it's
I come
at least
back
worth me
on
watching.
when you actually see these movies and you get to comment on it?
I think we need viewing nights for these guys.
All right. And my number 6 is Evil Dead, so we can pass on.
Let's talk about Insidious. I'll talk about Insidious.
Insidious 2.
Insidious 2.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm dying to see it because everything I've heard.
We've already talked about this. You and I have talked about this already. Insidious 2 is bonkers to me.
Yeah.
Spoiler free. Keep it spoiler free for Rob G.
We've already.
I know.
Rob and I have already had this conversation.
We had the conversation. Can I just read something really quick? Because Mike C is a huge Poltergeist fan, and he texted me that he just watched it like 2 years ago, and he said, let me see if I could find it.
Did he say this is just like Dark Skies?
He said it's he's like, oh my God. He's like, James Wan made Poltergeist 2.
He's
like mullets.
He's like, Insidious 2 is Poltergeist 2. The dad gets possessed. They're living with grandma. There's a ghost with a creepy backstory, and they go to the other side. I love it.
I mean, I've always said that to me, Insidious, the first Insidious is the reboot of Poltergeist.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It's quite. I mean, Patrick Wilson even looks like Craig T. Nelson. But Insidious 2. So on our turkeys, Ryan and I did for Thanksgiving, we did a turkeys episode, and I I called it a turkey, but I meant that in a loving way. I just think that it's so bananas. I think Insidious 2 is batshit. I love it. I love the and I can't say it, obviously, and I won't. But the stuff that goes on with Parker Crane is crazy to me. The fact that in 2013 these guys put that on the screen is just like, it blew my mind. I mean, I was sitting there watching this movie like, is this really where this is going? But I loved it. I found it to be fun and a bit campy, and I like that. And I just really think it's a fun, crazy, silly movie. Maybe I like it for the wrong reasons.
No, I think that's fine. I mean, I think having fun, like, it's not on my list, but I would say it would be close, but I'd say it's more fun than 90% of the films on my list.
Yeah, I enjoy
So I had more fun watching it than I did. But I also think, we were talking about before, I think me and Ryan were saying, like 10 years from now, that's going to be what I'm making those lists of, great sequels that are just crazy and everything.
Exactly. Like, they really went for it.
Yeah,
they
it's a lot of
really
fun.
went for something insane.
Because you can't replicate the success of the first film. I mean, like, where do you go?
And it was so close to Conjuring. So we also had a healthy dose of, like, classic James Wan, and then suddenly, now it's cool, fun, bonkers James Wan, which was cool, but maybe it was in the same year, maybe too.
Yeah, the Insidious Chapter 2 is what happens when you get Lee and James together. Right. Conjuring is what happens when you remove Lee from the equation, I think. Well, and it's just they're pure sensibilities. Yeah.
Also, the way I would describe it to anybody that hasn't seen it yet is, if you liked the third act of Insidious when they go into the further, you will probably like Insidious Chapter 2. Yeah. If you hated the third act when they go into the further, you probably will not like Insidious Chapter. When I watched Insidious for the first time, I was like, wow, because I've been following Lee and James. I'm a big fan of them as a team, and I've watched their career since it's begun. And so I'm watching Insidious, and I'm like, oh, they're really playing by the rules, like, they're really reined in, and ooh, sophisticated, ooh, good, okay. And then they go into the further, and I was like, you've earned it. Have fun, guys. Like, it's like the dog's off the leash. You're like, okay, I've been good. Can I go run around? Yeah, go run around. So I dig Chapter 2, but for silly reasons. And I think it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it'll age really well. I think people really. I already liked it. And as soon as I saw it, the first thing I said is like, Don Coscarelli for part 3. Right. Let's go all the way, guys. Let's fucking do this.
I said, when we talked, like in 20 years' time, there's going to be a bunch of kids sitting around a podcast table, and they're going to be like overlooked sequels, underappreciated sequels, and Insidious Chapter 2 will
be right under Hellraiser 2.
Are you saying we're kids?
No, I just say kids for everybody.
But that's good. I'm glad it made a list, because it really is a fun year. And I'm sure if Conjuring wasn't this year, I probably would have had it on my list just because, to represent more film.
I'm a James Wan fan. I'm not afraid to admit that.
I put Insidious 2 on my runner-ups, and I'm one of those people that when it went to the further, I was like, oh, come on. So part 2 wasn't quite my cup of tea, but I saw it, as Elric mentioned, in my incredibly southern hometown, and there was hooting and hollering, and it was sold out, and everybody was freaking out at it. So just because I saw it in that environment, even though that I was sitting here going, are we going back into the further now? Ooh, I have a fog machine. That wasn't.
Of course, it's the first film to screen in your town. Yeah. So, no wonder they're
Alamo
excited.
Draft House there, Elric.
Okay, you're very advanced.
But we're sophisticated with our. We still have 2 drive-ins.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But anyways, because of that, it wasn't my deal. But seeing the audience reaction that it got, it deserves some definite acclaim because of that. So
Ryan will appreciate this. My number 5.
Is this your number 5?
Yeah.
I need an intermission before we go to 5.
Oh, okay. And we're back. My number 5 is Kiss of the Damned. We had Zan Cassavetes in episode really early.
Yeah,
in the
she
first
was
few
our
episodes.
5th episode.
And she's a really cool filmmaker. If you like that film, you should check out. She made a documentary just about cinema in general that's really good, about the Z Channel, Magnificent Obsession, about a guy who used to curate the Z Channel who ended up actually murdering his wife in real life. Oh. And it documents a little bit on the murder, but it's mostly about this amazing channel. It's just kind of interesting that he was an obsessive. But she is, I didn't expect, from that documentary, I never would have thought she had this film in her in that sense. But she was, really interesting. Go back, if you see the film, go back and listen to that episode. I did write sexy as fuck next to my Kiss of the Damned. That's all you need to know. Mm-hmm. Gory and sensual. And I think those are 2 of the drawers of horror, like things that don't often collate in the same movie. Sometimes people are gory, sometimes sensual. I love it when the 2, and I think vampires, that's what it's meant to be. Yeah. So I think she nailed it. Yeah. So Kiss of the Damned.
Yeah, my number 5 is also Kiss of the Damned.
Oh, high five. Wow. Anytime we get the same numbers.
And I already commented on it, so.
My number 5 is Here Comes the Devil.
Oh, yeah, nice. So it's high up there for you.
My number 5 is Contracted.
Oh, okay. Well, then open up that.
I really like Contracted quite a bit. You guys didn't like Contracted?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, so here's the deal.
This table might not have liked
Eric England jumped on the scene with Madison County. I thought it was.
I don't like that one.
I'm sorry. I thought it was like a very, in terms of a new filmmaker coming on the scene, and I thought it was very accomplished, and he did a great job. But the story, meh. And then he did a movie called Roadside, which is kind of like this Hitchcockian thriller. I thought that was fine. Mm-hmm. Contracted is his best work yet. I think it is.
I'll agree with you there.
I think Contracted is incredibly creepy. Talk about a movie that made me squeamish. I love body horror films, but when you push the buttons with either eye trauma, teeth trauma, nail trauma, I am squirming in my seat. Wrap it in this big bow about sex and having unprotected sex and not knowing who your partner is and contracting something that is effed up. And I think I think that as a single male living in Los Angeles, that is a nightmare movie. Right. It's a nightmare movie.
Like 1 to 10, how much sex are you having? Let's go.
I'm just saying.
I'm trying to live vicariously here.
I'm laughing because Ryan gave me shit last night at a party. He's like, you have a thing about sex because you think nymphomania looks stupid. When clearly you are the one who has a thing about sex.
No, I don't. It's just like
I think we all humans have something.
I think this is a great, just kind of allegory for our time in terms of where, kids are randomly having, anonymous sex with people that they find on Facebook.
Yeah, but is it that or is it just if you have sex with Simon Barrett? I think that's what the film's really about.
Well,
You're next? Contracted, you're next.
It's a good companion piece to the bit, like his opening sequence from VHS 2, where he's like banging that girl.
Well, some girls would say it was worth it after you see him. And I'm not going to go there.
But no, I just thought that it was a good kind of I call it a cautionary tale. It's a really cool piece. And the fact that it goes to the place that it winds up going to in the third act, I was like, oh, that's neat. Okay. Yeah. I thought he did a great job with it. I think the girl is great. I just like it. I think it's a great piece.
I thought he was a really great guest, and we really enjoyed talking to him about the movie. My problem is I really love, that's one of my favorite genres, body horror. And for me, coming on the heels of things like Shivers and Rabid, it's just too light for a little too light a version of that. But I do think it's focused, and I think he succeeded in that, showing one character. The thing is, what I was kind of looking for is that other layer. I felt like I was looking for that thing. I felt like he was trying to play it two ways. Like maybe it's in her head.
Yeah.
Like this isn't actually happening to her. Because there's times where people are looking at her where it doesn't seem like they're seeing what she's seeing. And I think that might have been something that, if exploited well, could have really embellished that film.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think I want more for that kind of a film.
Well, I think that for a independent filmmaker who is, trying to get his stuff. And this was a fucking busy year for horror, not only on VOD, but DVD and theatrical. It was something original. It was something that was new. Obviously, we've seen this type of body horror in films before, but we hadn't gotten anything like that this year. So,
I will say, my problem with it, I always have problems with his dialogue. I had problems with his writing. It actually
didn't. Yeah, this time. Well, there was a few scenes. Having dated someone who was in Planned Parenthood, I like some of his clinical moments, the medical moments. I was like, no, that
I just have problems
really
with his teenage discussions. So you're so not cool.
Well, and there's a girlfriend character, the ex-girlfriend character. I just don't buy her. She, but then again, I always try to go. We have to go lighter on indies because they're working in a totally different way. They're not getting to cast exactly what they want. It's a tough. You're
tougher, dealing with budgets.
Totally. So we'll be lighter.
Yeah, but I do have to say, I saw at AFM this year, I saw a number of body horrors like Demonentia or something like that.
Oh, Dementomania.
Thank you, Dementomania. But that was
body horror movie?
Yeah. It was about a man who got bit by an insect and his body slowly started to degrade and break down. Okay. And his brain did too, but he was working in this really stiff, office-y job.
Yeah.
But so if I'm looking at kind of the stuff that I saw at AFM versus this, it rises to the top as one of the better ones that I saw this year for body horror.
Cool.
So
another one of mine was John Dies at the End.
Cool. Nice. High five. Cool. Number four, All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. Like I said, it could have been anywhere between 1 and 4. Loved it. Thought it was a really great film. Hope people get to see it on Blu-ray. It's going to be good.
Yeah. My number 4, honestly, a movie I think doesn't get enough love this year for some reason. Larry Fessenden new one, Beneath, which me and Elric watched together. Came out this year on Chiller. Scream Factory's putting it out next year. What's that smirk about, Ryan? Here it comes again.
No, I'm not saying anything.
I got to say, as far as giant fish films go, I thought it was great.
Look. In terms of, it's a movie about
Number 4, though?
Yes, and here's why. It's a movie about a giant fish, which is a ridiculous, stupid premise. That's a given. However, I know, Larry's favorite movie of all time is Jaws. So I knew this is the movie he's always wanted to make. And the reason I liked it is because it was far elevated than the average sci-fi movie that this could have been.
Chiller. It was a chiller film.
It was a chiller movie. I mean, me and Elric were watching it, and there was a shot, I think it was in the beginning when they're introducing all the characters. It's this long take that kind of go, and you're like, you would never, if it wasn't Larry, you would never get a long shot introducing all the characters this way. It would just be a typical stupid thing. And the reason I liked it is because the whole tagline is they're only friends on the surface, which is great. Once they get on the boat, the killer fish thing has nothing. It's almost like
the killer fish is nothing. Yeah.
It's just how shitty these kids are to each other when it comes down to, well, which one of us is going to survive? I'm going to throw this person out. I'm going to throw that person out. And not only that, the way that everybody kind of died in it was I just did not expect any of the death sequences. When, one person dies kind of in a weird way where I guess I'll give this away. The fish, does it bite her or something? The fish she reaches her hand and it pokes her, and you don't think anything happened from it, but then 2 minutes later,
it bites her and she bleeds out.
Yeah,
on the
that's
boat.
the thing. I was like, oh shit, she totally just bled out because she accidentally poked her artery. I'm like, that's kind of fucked up. And Elric and I will agree, probably the best.
Yeah,
definitely, I will agree with
you guys. My note is the best death I saw this year, and it was the most literally one of the most Hitchcockian things I've seen in years.
It was so slow.
It's also a character that you don't expect to die when they die, so I don't want to spoil it. When they come back, it involves rope and a boat. And it's really kind of stunning how he pulls it off.
Yeah.
It's one of those scenes where I would love to watch a deconstruction of how that was put together because it's just perfect.
Yeah, and Larry told me there will be something like that on the Blu-ray.
Oh, good.
All his storyboards, because he said that sequence came out exactly how he wanted to.
Yeah,
and it's the best sequence.
I feel like with that film, I kind of feel like with The Descent, because I love The Descent, but I always, in my mind, I have this different feel. We've talked about here where I believe it's actually about mass paranoia, and one person sees something that she didn't really see, and it spreads to everyone else, but it's not really happening. Potentially. I'm not saying that's really the truth, but with this film, if one of them had looked in the water and seen something, but we hardly saw it, and we never saw a fish, but they all, when they fall in, their blood comes up, so something is killing them, but we kept on the drama of the boat, I think it would be a much deeper and more interesting movie.
But that Schiller wouldn't have paid for that because you gotta have the fish.
No, exactly, and I know exactly why. And the fish was also kind of amusing, but
cool.
I don't know if the amusing of the fish.
It was a damn giant fish.
Yeah,
and it was a practical effect. We had breakdowns of it in Fangoria where we were showing how they constructed the fish and how they operated it in the water and everything. So it was a real practical.
But having all these unlikable characters being destroyed was really interesting, and I did like it.
What killed it for me was the last 10 minutes. It was kind of my not Devil Inside. What was the one where Devil Inside
didn't have an ending.
I just wanted to cut the ending off.
Right.
But yeah, it was just, I wanted to chop off the ending. I won't give any spoilers, but it's just the movie ends, and then I felt like there was a producer in the background going, "You got to explain what just happened. We got to sum all this up." And
that's probably I think we're
with your friend AJ Bowen on the weekend.
With AJ yesterday.
AJ said the one thing about Larry is he doesn't know how to end a movie, and he gets to the end and he's just like, all right, we got 2 minutes to wrap up. Let's just end the movie. And it's somebody do something quickly. And he was saying that's the one fault of all his films is the last couple minutes don't know how to leave it.
Like a Saturday Night Live sketch.
Yeah, which I thought was just a funny note.
Or a Stephen King book.
It's cutting out before resolution is often a better way. Before trying to tie something up neatly.
Hey guys, it was better than Hypothermia.
But he didn't make Hypothermia, did he?
Well, he produced that.
I never saw Hypothermia. I heard horrible things.
But he still is a really interesting voice in horror, I think, and not just as producing his actual films. Wendigo's a really cool film.
Yeah, Habit's one of my all-time favorites.
I liked Last Winter, except for the last 10 minutes. Again, I would have cut that off. But so my number 4 is American Horror Story.
What?
You're picking a show?
I'm picking a TV show for my top 10.
But which one? Because Asylum ended this year and Coven began this year.
I'm going with Coven. Okay. I loved Asylum, but Coven has just been my cup of tea.
What the fuck just happened here, guys? Did reality fucking just change on me?
No, because I know what's happening right now. In Rob G's head, he's like, well, I would have put Bates Motel on here if I knew that.
The last 3 episodes of The Walking Dead with the Governor are my favorite movie so far this year.
I thought about adding a show.
No, I think it's cool. I think it's and it's cinematic. That show is different than most shows. So
it's not. I mean,
because it's a miniseries, it gets a little closer to being I can almost give that a pass because it's like a self-contained storyline, you know?
Yeah.
But everything that they have done this season so far for Coven is exactly what I look for in a horror movie. It's had fun. It's been sexy. You don't know where it's going. Parts of it are batshit crazy where you're like, they're bringing zombies. Okay, we've got zombies now. Oh, wait, no, we've got more witches. And it's just, they're really going to set her on fire. Okay.
It's certainly become a lot more, this season has been more mainstream minded. I think than previous episodes. I think they got scared by Asylum because Asylum was so all over the place
and dark.
This one and super dark
Asylum.
Yeah. But I think this one this year. I mean, I don't think they kept this in mind, but I mean, it's certainly more mainstream minded because you've got this. It's less horror and more, I don't know, just intrigue and mystery and like, you know, these kind of the drama between the witch hunters and then the voodoo princesses and the, you know, the actual witches from Salem and stuff. I mean, it's got horror elements, but it's just I don't know, the drama is a little bit different and a little bit more unique than it was in the previous two seasons. I mean, I think it's, if I had to categorize them, I would say probably Murder House is still my favorite. And then Coven, and then Asylum, yeah.
And also, I think it's witches haven't been played out. It's one of the few things that you can still play with the mythology. They're creating lots of fun little things about how their covens are run and like life after death and coming back. Right. So to me, it's kind of fun because with zombies and everything else, we know everything. There's nothing you can tell me now. But I feel like witches, there's still a lot of room.
See, I thought witches, like if you'd asked me last year, I thought witches, they just didn't hold scares anymore. It was impossible to make a witch scary. And then after we've seen Lords of Salem
and Conjuring definitely had
Conjuring and American Horror Story, I'm sold on witches again.
Witches are back.
Yep.
Word. Number 4 is Conjuring.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay. On unpopular opinions with Clarke Wolfe. I want to talk real fast. This is not my number 4. It's probably my 10, 11, 15. But
Wait, you're breaking from the assignment.
Yeah,
number 4.
I know. But I'm just going to say this real fast, and then we don't have to talk about it. I saw World War Z in a theater, like a paid theater, opening night. It was a lot of fun. My audience was like, you could have heard a pin drop. It was the ArcLight. The audience I saw it with was into it. I haven't seen it since. I haven't thought about it since, but I really enjoyed it. So there you go.
We have discussed that. It was a surprise to everyone.
It's not a bad film.
And you know, look, it's not like I didn't feel like when we get to our number 1s and our number 2s, you know, I was like, I'm very, very moved and passionate about those two films, my number 1 and number 2. But you know, for what it was fine. It was fine, and I had fun in it, and that's all. It's okay.
I wish you could all see Ryan's face for this whole podcast.
Ryan looks
World War Z. I mean, World War Z is a greatest hits for everybody who's ever seen a zombie movie before.
Look,
but and the mainstream people, like people who are not accustomed to zombie movies, they're gonna love it. They're gonna love it. But my criticism I level at them is, where are the characters here? Where are the characters in this movie for us? Jerry is a non-character. He is a cardboard slate upon which you could take a Sharpie and draw faces and emotions on him.
Yeah, but
his wife, you know, someone really brought out a really great character moment in there that just drew attention to the fact that Muriel Enos's character is nobody. On Jerry's phone, it actually says, like, when she calls, it says wife. No, that's a nice. No.
That's really good.
It's a cute character moment. When
that's funny.
He calls her on her phone, it just says Jerry. All right, there's nothing cutesy about it. I mean, it wasn't. She's a non-character.
Right.
Everybody in it, it's just. There's
funny.
nothing to really.
You know, it's funny though because
it's a visceral experience.
You have to give indie films a break. Come on, that film is like penny pinching.
I get different things from different movies.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is that I didn't go to World War Z for a character study. I didn't. That's not what I showed up for.
Yeah.
What I showed up for, I got. It was enjoyable. I enjoyed it, and
you and my dad, you guys can talk about it.
Yeah.
My dad loves that movie.
I like your dad. I like all the stories about your dad. He's always cool.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into it. But
it was almost my 10. I agree with you. It was just a thoroughly entertaining movie, and I actually like that they changed the third act and made it more contained. I
agree.
I thought that was a strong, cool, sharp turn.
I think that the whole thing with that David Lindelof, that article where he talked about how studios usually are saying, you know, bigger, 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 and then they brought him in and said, "Can you make this smaller?" And he was like, "Wait, what?"
If it got bigger by the third act, I'd be like, "Oh,
it would explode."
But that's what made it. That's what made it different and made it work.
I agree.
Once they're in Israel, it's over. You can't go bigger than that. You're like seeing people going over the fans.
The walls.
You can, but I mean, that's the thing. It's like
don't.
World War Z is striving to be bigger in every respect. So when they went smaller, I went, you guys just became The Walking Dead. You guys just became a Romero movie. Why would you do that when you're trying to be huge in scope and deliver something enormous?
I will say the one thing about that film was the sequence. Well, I guess there are still spoilers with that film. You think? I guess. Well, okay. Well, there's a key thing where Brad Pitt figures out something about the zombies, and it's a beautifully tension filled. No.
When they're in the CDC.
The big discovery towards the end. It's a brilliantly put together, but again, it's much more in line with a Romero film, like totally minimal. It's just him, zombies, and an idea. And I thought that was great filmmaking. That was the first time I really kind of got invested. Surviving plane crashes and stuff is a little too grandiose.
Yeah. But the climax was weird for me because the climax is this really kind of quiet thing that happens in the CDC.
Yeah, that was
with
the best
like
part.
2 people in the room, and that's where the movie peaks. But it feels like it should peak when it's in Israel, because that's when you've got millions of people being literally hurled at a wall. Yeah. So
I mean, it's probably it deserves comeback of the year because it's a movie that was just like written off and could ruin Hollywood, and could lose $300 million. And so somehow it clawed back to, break even maybe.
And even months later, it's still like number 5 on the DVD purchase list. So it's got some staying power.
The gentleman that they've hired to direct the next one, I think is a great choice. The gentleman who did The Orphanage. And I'm very, very, very excited to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's always interesting to see where they choose.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, same with
I
The
think
Purge.
based on the Impossible alone, what he did with that movie, that's why I'm excited for World War Z 2, because one, that tsunami experience was absolutely terrifying watching it last year. And then what he did with the characters and stuff like that. If you apply zombies to that scenario, I'm interested.
Wait, what's the tsunami experience?
In the Impossible, the movie The Impossible.
Oh, okay.
He directed that as well.
Yeah.
And he's directing the new one.
Yeah, it's the one with Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor where Naomi Watts, the family experiences a tsunami. Yeah. It's really good.
I've got to see that.
Okay. Number 3 is The Conjuring, and this is where we get into subjective.
High five. My number 3 is The Conjuring.
This is subjective, objective time. I always believe 100% you have to make it as subjective as possible. Objectively, it's the best film of the year. Like, without even any hesitation, I believe it's one of the best horror films in the last 5-10 years, but it's not my favorite. It's just why I watch it and go, wow, this is great.
100%.
I watched it again a few weeks ago and I was like, this is still great, but I have more personal connections to a couple other films I saw this year so that's why. But it's a great fucking movie.
Nice.
Exactly what Elric said. That's my number 3, and for the same reasons.
My
Rebekah?
number 3 is John Dies at the End.
Cool.
Nice.
My number 3 is your next.
I don't have a number 3.
That is crazy. Wait a minute. You have 10 films? How is that possible? Oh wait.
Because I didn't really like.
You didn't. Is there one you haven't
World War
mentioned
Z
yet?
was a.
It's just like, I saw a lot of stuff.
Okay.
But
So
not
are you
enough
down
to
to your 2 then?
Yeah.
All right. So
Okay,
what's your
all
2?
right.
Okay.
Wait. No.
We'll go.
We go around.
We're skipping.
Yeah. We're not skipping.
This has never happened in the history of the show.
Why? Listen, Ryan knows whenever we make lists and I'm supposed to rank that, I always pick 6 movies instead of 5 or
Ryan, why didn't you warn us? Why didn't you write her an extra one?
She can't follow the formula.
I know.
All right.
I never
That's
do.
okay. That's okay. All right. We will go to number 2, and that is The Battery.
Boom.
I know I've already seen somebody else's in here. It's very easily could be. This is my note next to it. It's my favorite indie of the year. So, and that's not just horror film. It's just my favorite indie film I saw this year. It's the one that I got, really inspired by. I also really loved the character. I thought there's certain moments, stylization wise, that he did really interesting things. I had no one's ass to kiss. I mean, AJ told us about it on the show. I don't care if I like or don't like a film that somebody recommends me. I watched it alone, really liked it, watched it, showed a jump cut to a crowd and loved it. Like, it elevated the film by me seeing with a group of people, because it just sort of how clever and smart it was. It's all about smoke and mirrors. When you have a budget, and I don't care if it's $6,000 he really had or if he had $100,000, it's knowing what your film is and what not to show to cheapen your film. And usually what happens with all the straight to video stuff we get, sent to look at, is they try to make a $2 million movie and they have $50,000. And so they try to show you stuff that they really just don't have the budget to show you. And I think that's where he was smart. I think that's where he made, and it's tight. And more than anything, you're curious about this guy and what he's going to do afterwards. So I loved it. It took me a long time to decide whether it'd be my number 1, because championing a smaller film feels great. I feel like I just couldn't, because I know that the film I saw, that will be my number 1. From the moment I saw it, I said, this is going to be the best film I'll see this year, and it was.
Wow.
And so I have to stick with that.
You
know what it is. I mean, you will know.
See, Elric's covering his list, when Rebekah keeps looking over at mine.
I do. I'm cheating.
She's been changing a lot of hers.
I switched 2.
She is really just.
I switched to.
Okay. No, that's fine. But anyway, so yeah, Jeremy Gardner, good stuff, man. Awesome film.
Right on. My number 2 is Maniac, the remake to Maniac.
Nice.
And not much to say about it that we haven't already talked about. It's just, it was almost my number 1 for really a long time. Me and Ryan saw it at the Cinefamily last year. And I don't know about you, but I had no expectation. I didn't know anything about it other than POV, Elijah Wood. And just the opening scene is so goddamn strong that when the title Maniac comes up, we were like, oh shit.
Everybody in the crowd.
Everybody. You could feel
the
it.
Tide turned. Like everybody was like, there was this kind of like unsettled like curiosity. Like, what the hell are we going to watch? And then once Maniac splashed on the screen, like you felt like all his weight just fell off everybody's shoulders. We all went, okay, here we go.
You're waiting for it, and there's even a credit that's like based on the motion picture Maniac by William Lustig, and I'm like, but they haven't said the title yet. And then like the scene happens, and then just like this big giant red lettering across the and that stinger, and you're just like, oh shit, this is going to be intense.
I was, I unfortunately, I was surprised at how much I didn't like Maniac, but, and also serial killers, that kind of thing, not my jam. But
it's an unpleasant movie.
That's not the issue. But the opening scene scared me. And when I say scared me,
great.
I mean like, because I've been that girl. We've all been that person where you're
Elric's
drunk.
been that girl.
I've been the other guy.
But no, you know what I mean? Like you're drunk, your wits aren't about you. You think something's going on. What is that? She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do anything stupid. That was where the movie sort of fell apart for me as a viewer watching the victims. They got progressively like, I would never do that. I would never do that.
That's what killed me. And it was one of these things where I wanted to like that movie so much. And there were parts of it that I love. But when that girl starts hanging out all the time, spending with this creepy Elijah Woods, I'm like, nobody's going to hang around him.
I don't want to shit on it. I don't want to shit on.
She's an artist. Here, you want to take photos of creepy
men.
No,
creepy mannequins.
But as from a female perspective, you do not hang out with people like that because
it just got progressively whatever. But the point I'm making is, when I watched that opening scene, I was so scared. Like I felt it, and I thought, if this is how the rest of the movie is, this is going to be a lot. Yeah. This is going to be a lot. Fortunately, for my emotional little fragile self, it was not, but it did not scare me. But that is the Conjuring scared the shit out of me because ghosts scare me. Yeah. But this was like dread. Like this was like that. It really got that opening scene scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, but I will say, the moment the credits were rolling, I was online buying the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's a great
soundtrack. I love the soundtrack
of the year, right?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
For me, it's a film that I've promised to rewatch because we really had the worst screening of the year for me was watching this movie. We had a screener in advance, and we were sitting there, and we had a guy, Matt Carey Holmes, if you're listening, talk through the entire film about how much he was hating every moment of it. Yep. And he was talking, and we're all kind of watching, and it's daylight outside, and so we
watched it at like 4 o'clock.
It was really a
Tuesday.
Mistake to watch it like that, and I really don't want to rate it. It's not in my top 10, but I know it's stylistically, I was really impressed. I love the soundtrack. I am actually a really huge fan of the original. Unlike I know a lot of people like whatever the original. I love his performance in the original. I think it's a beautiful performance. What I will say is I have a feeling that this film will creep up on me.
Yeah, and look, it's not a perfect film at all. Some of the dialogue's clunky, and I have some of the same problems with you. It's just overall, like the thing about horror and recommending stuff is sometimes you see something so out of left field that you want to tell other horror fans, like, you've never seen anything quite like this. Yeah. And stylistically, them keeping up the POV thing the entire time, the music.
They don't keep it up the entire time, though.
Well, they break it. That was annoying for me, too.
That made me really mad.
But the reasoning behind it, and it's what I thought, and then obviously the director said after the screening, it's, because most serial killers, when they're on, death row talking about it, they always say like, well, when I'm, I felt like I was out of my body watching myself do it. And if you notice, it doesn't happen in the first couple of murders. It gradually goes on.
I did notice that.
I thought that was kind of a neat way to pull him back into the movie, like to actually show Elijah.
Camera work is beautiful. Yeah. The movie looks fantastic. I think it's a gorgeous film. The camera work is smooth.
Tons of neat tricks.
It's really, really, yes.
Its greatest asset, for me, its greatest assets are also the reason I failed to connect to the movie, and that's because it looks gorgeous and the POV is done so beautifully. The reason I watch movies are for an emotional connection. Without Elijah's reaction shots, there's no emotional connection because that's how cinema, the language of film, operates. It's like you see something and then you see the reaction. You feel something, usually based on the reaction shot, not the first shot. So therefore, by eliminating that from a movie, it was totally unique and amazing. but I'd never cared. Yeah. And so I'm curious if there's a way to emotionally care through that POV. I don't know. It wasn't for me.
You feel his because he was there the entire time.
Yeah, no, I know. I totally understand that.
But last thing I'll say about that, and this goes for Maniac and even Evil Dead, to me, the best remakes, the ones that I enjoy the most, are if I can do a double bill with the original and not feel like I'm watching the exact same movie. Like I could watch the original Evil Dead and the new one and be like, oh, that was a cool double bill.
Totally different movies. Yeah.
Same thing with Maniac. Neither are pleasant movies and it'd be a fucked up 3 hours, but I could watch the original Maniac and the remake and feel like I didn't watch the exact same movie and enjoy both of them equally.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Number 2, Rebecca.
My number 2 was Grabbers. This was just kind of like my ideal this was kismet for me, where it's got, I love creature features, the awesome creature effects that they had in it, the cast, the fact that it was kind of a comedy horror, but still had a decent amount of gore going on and scares in it. It was just like kind of my perfect storm of horror film.
Number 2 is Stoker for me. It was one of the first movies I saw this year, and the one that has stuck with me throughout. I've watched it on multiple occasions now. It is beautiful. It's Hitchcockian. It's well thought out. The script, I think, is terrific, if a little bit on the nose. I mean, obviously, it's not a very subtle movie with a lot of some of the key scenes. It's a great coming of age, warped, well performed film. I think it's great.
My number 2 is The Conjuring. Until I saw Lords of Salem yesterday or whenever I saw it, it was my number one. The Conjuring was my number 1, but it scared the shit out of me. I saw it twice. It scared me both times. It's well made, just like you said, Elric. I think it's going to last a long, long, long time. I think James is getting better and better and better, and I love watching that. As a fan of his as a director, it's so cool to watch him grow. I was also in the Night Vision trailer, scared,
cool.
shying in, so you
awesome.
could know that it scared the shit out of me. But just like you said, I think it was the best. It was the best horror film of the year. It wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
Until So.
Yeah, I know that must sound like a weird distinction, but I really do believe
I agree too. I don't think your favorite is the best.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Grabbers. I mean, it's if you look at it, there's certain elements of it that you can see are slightly flawed, but it was my favorite film.
Yeah, we're all weird. We're like Rob Zombie. He's going to watch a movie and he look at Lords of Salem. He clearly looks for something weird in a movie to love it. Doesn't mean it's the best movie. Okay, so number 1's okay. Only I knew the second I saw Stoker that it was my favorite film of the year, and that will probably be. And when I say it's favorite film of the year, it's probably going to be transcend horror. So and we can debate whether it's horror or not, but I don't think that really matters, because it's like you said yesterday, it's like, is Hitchcock horror? Like Shadow of a Doubt mixed with Psycho, mixed with the reason I'll say it is 100% horror, or within the framework of the fantastic, is because there's also psychic telepathic communication elements that are put in there which you cannot just lump into, it's a basic thriller. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things in there that deal with, and there's certain grotesqueries. And one sequence, maybe at the 30-minute mark, where it's intercut between someone going downstairs, somebody had a phone.
And the lighting.
That's my favorite moment of the year in cinema.
It's amazing.
It's gorgeous. And look, I'm not a hardcore, like a zealot Park Chan-wook fan. I think Old Boy's incredible. I haven't seen all his films, but when I saw this, I was just like, wow, this is a guy who's taking all the cool things about the language of cinema and editing, and like especially graphic matches, which is something Nick Rogue used to do.
Yes.
It's like, okay, so the hair is going to go down to the reeds.
That
is not an editing decision. That is a directorial, stylized,
storyboarded film.
Yep.
And the thing that people often don't talk about is that can lead you into all sorts of shit in post, because if things drag, you can't make those connections. So that means the director's so on his game that he has made the pacing and the rhythm of his film in the shooting of it. And I just think it's, one of those films, and I think it's Nicole Kidman's best work in so long.
Yeah.
And it's the first one where I didn't go, oh, look, the plastic surgery, you can't move your face anymore. She's actually genuinely really good.
Yeah,
I fucking love this film. And I really hope, I thought it was going to be huge. I guess when I was watching it in the theaters, like, oh, everyone's going to love this. And then I was really surprised to see, it's kind of not getting I bet it'll be on a lot of lists.
Next time, if I ever interview Wentworth Miller, who has since come out.
Yeah, exactly. He came out
as a gay man.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
after
now,
escaping from prison.
I now want to rewatch that with that in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there are all these layers going into the writing process. But he wrote a sequel to this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
about the family?
About the girl?
Nobody knows. I don't know, because when the movie started going into production, I think Deadline broke it and they were like, well, Fox is so excited about this that he's already got a script. Like he had a trilogy planned.
Oh, interesting.
And if I ever run into him and be like, dude, can you just leak me that sequel?
I just want to see it.
Yeah, because the problem is without Park, it really is elevated to an art level with Park Chan-wook that I can't imagine. I bet that same script with some directors would have been really just kind of flat.
Yeah. It's kind of like in terms of mystery sequels that I don't think will ever happen, but I know are on scripts. Like script is like Stoker and Mr. Brooks.
Right. Yeah,
Mr. Brooks has a sequel,
cool
and
movie.
it's got a script out there, but I would love to read it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
No, I'll go ahead and say Stoker was my number one as well.
Yes.
So wait, was it like a high five or something? There you go. But this weekend I was discussing it with somebody at a party, and it came up that the script didn't have to be good. It's a competent script, but what makes the film is the direction, the art direction, the style that he gives it, the pacing, everything.
But the story still has to be there. You can't just be a great stylist.
But it's not that complex of a story. No. It's a very basic story that he just put this amazing cinematic wash over top of. Yeah. And that's what makes it.
And I think it'll hold up for a second viewing because once you've realized some of how the opening and the ending are connected.
You get to watch it,
I need to watch it again for that.
Yeah. So that was by far my number one of the year.
But it's just all the character stuff going on between Mia Wasikowska's character and Matthew Good. It's just, I love all of that. Yeah, it's just because it makes you squirm in your seat as it's all playing out. And
it's finding the sexuality in relationships that aren't sexual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's an attraction, but it's not a sexual attraction. It's a family thing that we're alike.
But then it starts to become a sexual thing. Like there was a moment, the fact that it made me turn, like there's this one moment where they play the piano and there's this great moment happening and you're like, okay, there's some real creepiness happening. And then the uncle comes to her rescue. I'm not going to say why, but it actually made you sit up in your seat and cheer for that moment because it's like, oh my gosh, her knight in shining armor just showed up. But wait a minute, her knight in shining armor is her uncle. It's just, I liked it.
No, there's all those layers going on. It's really cool.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Elric, where I was like, oh, this is going to be like the biggest film of the year. This is going to make millions. And no one else saw it.
It's way too weird.
Hell's
way
no.
too weird.
Yeah, I saw no commercial potential. Really?
It's
so good, though.
Before I get to my number one, here's my thoughts on Stoker, because it's a great film and I liked it up. I didn't love it.
You only just saw it now, right?
Like a month ago, last month. Yeah. No, and it's beautifully directed. I don't agree that it's a good story. It's a very big. If it wasn't Park Chan-wook, it would just be a typical mystery thriller because there's not much to the story. The fact that he directed it and has such a clear vision elevates the material completely. Right. The weird thing I have, and it's just a personal preference, I'm a huge fan of Korean cinema, especially stuff that's coming out of South Korea now. Park Chan-wook's one of my favorite directors. I hate when Korean directors do American movies. And to me, it felt like a remake of a great Korean movie. Like I had trouble seeing, who is it? Nicole Kidman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have trouble seeing Nicole Kidman and Matthew Good. When I see them and I recognize America, there's something about foreign cinema where I don't know anybody in it that I really get lost into it, especially his earlier movies. So the problem with me is that I wish it was a Korean movie with Korean actors.
That's like saying I want you to stay in your sandbox over there playing with your.
I get
I don't want you to come to America.
It's like he could have made this as a Korean film and then it just would have been remade anyways, like Old Boy and stuff like that.
I thought you would have liked it, Rob, because when I was watching it, I actually thought
I did like it, but I'm saying I didn't love it.
I thought it would have because it has Dexter-ish. To me, I was like,
Matthew Good, his character, I guess.
I'm talking about the girl.
Well, they both do. I mean, they're both similar characters.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
they're kind of flip sides of the coin.
And she's great, and I'm not familiar with her, which is why I think I liked her the best out of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's just like this. It's a weird, I call it lost in translation, where for some reason I could buy that weird brother thing with if it was Korean. And the other example I gave, it's not a horror movie at all, but Kim Ji-woon, who did The Last Stand with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is not a good movie. However, if that was a Korean movie, I'd love it. Because, I mean, this is the guy that made I Saw the Devil, which was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
That was my number 2.
He was probably just brought onto it, right?
Really
like, I mean, I'm sure he didn't develop
but
it.
Here's the thing. It's like, if I could totally see, like, Johnny Knoxville was kind of retarded in that movie. But for some reason, if that was a Korean actor, it would come off quirky. It's like a lost in, like...
You know what? I think your comments about that are totally apt for that movie. I just don't believe for Stoker that's... I don't think anything is lost in translation.
I'm sure I will love Stoker on repeat viewings. It's a beautifully made film. It's just, I didn't love it as much as everyone else did. I wanted to because I love that filmmaker, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't want him working with Nicole Kidman. I want him working with his usual crew of
I thought
actors.
They were all great. It didn't move me like I thought it would. I thought it was going to knock my personally. Not saying that anything against the film. It just didn't connect with me. It just didn't like knock my socks off. And
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I still have no socks on.
I did an interview with Park Chan-wook when they were doing the press junkets for it, and I asked him what the biggest difference between doing Korean cinema and American cinema was, and he says the time frame was shocking. That when he does Korean cinema, he'll have like a year to make a movie, and then here he has like 2 months, and that's it.
Well, and it still came out very amazing on his part. My number one, The Battery, which was your number two, and I mean we've talked about it so much on the previous episodes. It just personally spoke to me. It's usually you here's a zombie movie, here's a low budget indie movie. Usually those are the two things that I don't want to see at all or give a chance to. But I saw it theatrically twice. I saw it at the Cinefilm and I saw it at Ear Cafe with an audience. And what I love about horror is character stuff. And the zombie thing is incidental and the film works for its budget. AJ always makes this point that he's pretty sure if the dude had 100,000, he probably would have made the same exact movie. Like that's clearly what they wanted to make. And I love it. I thought it was beautifully shot. I love the actors in it. I love what Jeremy did with it. And I can't wait for another one.
Yeah.
That's how they leave it off.
My number one was Stoker.
My number one's Maniac.
Right on.
I think that if anything is going to hit the top of a list, it has to be merciless and unrelenting. And in this case, Maniac puts you into the point of view of a serial killer. You're not supposed to feel good about it. You're supposed to feel like on the edge. And it did exactly what a remake should do, which is turn it on its head, introduce something new. And rather than just go through the usual route of telling a typical serial killer movie, they put you right into his skin, man. And that's the worst possible place to be, is in a serial killer's skin as opposed to being on the victim side. And this is one I've been watching. I've watched on multiple occasions here. And then also because of the soundtrack is so damn good. I think Elijah Wood is terrific in it. I think everybody's really solid. And for it to come from Frank Calhoun, who gave us P2, I mean, he is obviously being groomed the right way with Alexandra Aja and Gregory Levasseur doing like kind of shepherding the project. And
I had a friend on
script.
set who said every single beat, Aja sat next to him, and he before he would give any direction, Aja whispered to him, and then Frank would give direction. So I've heard that really, this is not a light hand. This is
it's kind of like a Platinum Dunes project where Fuller and Form actually sit next to the director and go, okay,
So they really did make it together.
But it's definitely a collaborative effort. But I think it's terrific, terrific horror movie. And in terms of delivering on the horror, there was no better film this year.
My number one, Lords of Salem. I fucking loved it. I loved every minute of it, 100%. I know, and what's funny is that I similarly to what we talked about earlier, appreciate Rob Zombie's visual style so much, and I'm fascinated by him as a guy. I think he's so passionate and so interesting. And I've seen all his movies, and I just loved Lords of Salem, and I think I loved Lords of Salem because I could identify with Heidi. I don't know why, because I'm not in recovery. I'm not tatted up. I'm not a radio DJ. I am none of those types of things. But I just saw a gal who was struggling and a gal who was trying to make herself have a good life, to have a life that was worth something. And to me, what's funny to me about Lords of Salem, because I have no religious experience really as a child. And, my parents are not. They're not in, we grew up in a very, very non-religious household. And so I have no preconceived notions of the devil. None of this is jarring for me in that kind of a way. But from what I gather, the idea of Satan, the idea of Satan is that he kind of like turning souls and collecting souls and things like that. The idea that this girl loses, you know what I mean, is very sad to me. And it's funny because I've been reading, I heard all the criticism when the movie came out, and I didn't see it. And because I know my previous experience with like Rob Zombie movies, and so I was like, okay, I can wait, And the criticism was so intense, like Sherry Moon Zombie can't act, this movie sucks, it's horrible, blah, 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 blah. And then I saw the movie and I was like, wow, I don't feel that way. And I started reading more about it. And the thing that people kept saying is that like it goes nowhere. And I was like, but it's a character piece. This character, you're watching this woman lose her soul. Like it absolutely goes somewhere. And to me, you know, like I read a bunch of stuff that was like, well, it's not scary. And I'm like, well, why? Because one of the characters isn't running around with someone's face that got cut off. You know, like in Devil's Reject, he's not running around with dust and like wearing skin suits. Like, what do you mean? It's just different. And I think that people had a preconceived notion about what a Rob Zombie movie, I said this earlier, but what a Rob Zombie movie is and what we actually got. And I really love it. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. I want to watch it. Like when I finished it, I was like, I want to watch that again.
I agree with that level of sadness to Sherry's character, because there's a moment where it all culminates with them going to this performance, you know, and I think it's her like ex-boyfriend or one of her best friends who's like, are you okay? And she's just like, there's like this kind of like, I'm not doing it. And it's like, she knows her fate. She knows, and it's kind of it's a sad and lonely moment because she's about to enter into this thing that she can't control anymore.
Yeah,
and her friends can't do anything about it.
That's something you can't change the course.
Exactly.
Right. You're on the course, and
you're on the course.
Like a bad drug addiction. It's like there's only one way.
Exactly. She had relapsed at that point. And you know, the other thing, just real fast. I mean, because like I don't want this blasphemous is a very ironic word, but you know, I was watching it and reading this criticism, and I thought to the review said there's no scares, and this one reviewer, I can't remember who it was. I have it for our show on Tuesday pulled up, but I was like, well, what scares were there in Rosemary's Baby? Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's Rosemary's Baby. I'm not saying that. But with this type
I think it's about the definition of what a scare is.
Exactly. But my point that I'm making is like with this type of film, it's just not that kind of movie. So accept it. Now, granted, you can have problems with the script. You can have problems with direction. You can have whatever. But the idea that nothing happened and that it didn't pay off, I just disagree with. Because I don't think that's the type of movie he was trying to make.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's good. Good top 10. So we have 2 Stokers, we have 1 Maniac, we have 1 Lord Salem, and we have 1 for the Battery.
Yes.
Shall we just quickly throw out our runner-ups?
You don't have to.
Or worst subs or whatever else we want to touch on.
Let's just start. Was there anything that you feel like you need to mention because it didn't quite make it? Yeah. Just if you loved something, but
Antiviral was good for me. It was Brandon Cronenberg's son. His new body horror film.
Yeah, it's on Netflix streaming.
I watched it this morning.
Post-apocalyptic, or not post-apocalyptic. It's a future.
Utopia. That's also
we'll call it a utopic world where they sell the viruses of celebrities to fans, so you can have like the Britney Spears flu and things like that. And this one guy contracts something that this previous celebrity died of that they don't know what she died of. Yeah. And so he then has to go back and kind of research what it was that killed her.
And find a cure.
Yeah. And so I really liked that one. Dead Sushi was one I didn't expect to like, but I was kind of like, this is a fun little film. It's seriously a Japanese film about killer sushi.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just throw them out there. We don't have to tell people you just throw out.
I think about something like Battery would probably make my like outside top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, like the only reason why it didn't break into the top 10 is because it was more drama than horror for me. This was a best of horror. And while it's certainly a genre film, it didn't compete in terms of the horror category. I mean, this was more of a buddy drama to me that just happened to have zombies in it.
I think, again, it depends what you want from.
What about Resolution?
It is very similar.
Resolution is a little bit more direct in its horror. I mean, like in the latter half, I think.
I would
certainly
agree with that.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't care for the Battery, I would agree with exactly what you just said.
Yeah. So,
but I think that ultimately comes down to what do we. That is a good definition for what you want from horror.
Right.
And if you're looking for like some of us, totally,
exactly.
VHS 2. I know. I'm only saying this because Safe Haven could make it in my top 10.
Oh, yeah.
VHS 2 cannot.
Yes.
And that's all I'm saying. Safe Haven was an amazing little film, and it's a segment of an anthology, so it doesn't quite get. I saw something last night that I don't believe is horror, but otherwise it'd be in my top 10. Sightseers by Ben Wheatley.
Yeah, that's on my I want to see list.
Funny as it didn't get me for about half an hour. I'm like, it's just a dark comedy about people. As it goes, it gets pretty outrageous, and it's very. I thought it was a very fun, but it is a black comedy. It is not a horror film at all. It would be very hard to say it was a horror film because it's really the definition of what a black comedy is.
Really,
but
it
makes me think
that on top 10 horror.
Yeah,
lists.
I know. That's why I disagree. But I will say this: I think Ben Wheatley's my the voice I'm most interested in the world right now in terms of cinema. I'm just not saying that I like everything he makes. Kill List I loved. I haven't loved anything else, but I find them just completely fascinating. And it's like his mind is some sort of weird blender of different things and different tropes. So I'm really curious. The one thing I think he could make the greatest film, Hammer should hire him to make the revisionist vampire.
It's on my list of things. So we're going to do kind of like a highlights of 2013 kind of things that either got us excited or moments in horror. And one of my favorite moments this year is to learn that Hammer actually made an offer to Ben Wheatley to direct a Captain Kronos remake.
Oh, cool.
Really?
Okay, well that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, and he also, his ABCs of Death is superb. Unfortunately, you have to wade through 20 films to get to it, and it's a first person Hammer film, basically, where you're from the perspective of the hunted vampire as they're all catching up to you and they're all wearing period pieces. And I'm like, shit, this dude should be making a Hammer film. And so I just think he's a really interesting voice to watch.
You need to see Field in England. I'm anxious to see what you think of it.
I might not like it, but I'm just saying I like that he's playing. You know, it's cool. And England is a boring place.
He is playing. It's 5 people in a field with psychedelic mushrooms.
Cool.
In colonial times, like revolutionary times. So, yeah, I'm anxious to see what you think of it.
All right.
I was very intrigued by American Mary. I liked it fine. But I think that concept was just so cool. I thought, and the execution was okay.
Lead actress was great. That was the best thing for me about the film.
Well, American Mary is definitely good. That would probably be top 15 material for sure. It doesn't hold up on repeat viewings. I think it's one of those kind of one experience kind of deals. But it's a great character piece. Technically, it's got some problems. I kind of wish that they went in and actually did a sound mix because some of the sound in that is terrible, but it came down the budget. But in terms of doing a film about counterculture and body modification, I mean, like, that's the way to do it. It's kind of like this cool underground, almost Boogie Nights-esque, because you're introduced to this world and then all the characters and all the pawns within it. But then there's like a serious drama. Major dramatic piece that comes into play.
I hope this doesn't get taken the wrong way, but I would love to remake American Mary. Like I
clean it up a bit.
Yes.
No, I loved American Mary up till the ending. The ending was a bit of a punch out for me, where I was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're going back to that.
Fix. It kind of felt like a quick fix. Like, we don't know where this is going, so we just need to wrap things up quick.
But I mean, like, right up to the ending, I was with it in full, and then it was in the last 15 minutes that I was like, man, I wish we'd gone someplace else.
Yeah. But I do like it was something that caught up to her. I like that like it was something that happened early on in her experience that caught up to her. It was just the way the story told it and brought it back every once in a while. It was a little sloppy.
Yeah. Any others that you have to include in this?
I will give at least a throw out to Wither. It was not my favorite film of the year, but if you like Evil Dead, you will like Wither. So, did you watch it?
Well, maybe.
I haven't seen it.
People who liked Evil Dead didn't even like the new Evil Dead. So
if you like, if you like the new Evil Dead, you will like Wither, because
if you like good-looking people from Scandinavia,
that was exactly like every single person. And I couldn't figure out if it was just this film or if it's just Swedish people in general. So somebody can tell me. But it's pretty much it is Evil Dead. This is like the Swedish version of Evil Dead. It's 5 people in a cabin. And then one of them lets loose some type of supernatural thing. And then it progresses just like Evil Dead, where they get possessed and it spreads by blood and things like that. So it's very Evil Dead-esque. But yeah, every single person in that cast is incredibly fuckable. It's just ridiculous.
Nice.
So, there's this one guy that he looks like an Abercrombie model. Like, he has no business camping in the woods.
That usually puts me off a little bit if everyone looks that way. It's cool when there's a mixture of people, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would have liked this movie if it used a different color palette. It was this very kind of black, white, opaque color palette that I didn't like. It wasn't a black and white film. It just had this very kind of washed out color palette. It was very extreme. I wasn't a fan of that.
I know we probably don't want to go too much over 2 hours, so let's do quick, like, best, or do you want to throw in some worst?
I want to like rattle off my worst of list. I'll make it really quick because I just need to get this off my chest. Okay. Now, the worst of list is a culmination of films. Elric and I were talking about this. I mean, we see a lot of crap, but these are especially terrible. Texas Chainsaw 3D.
I liked
completely
it.
Unnecessary. Hell Baby.
Oh my God.
Hell Baby. Absolutely the worst horror comedy I've ever seen.
Somebody wrote on your wall today that they liked it, huh?
Oh, absolutely terrible.
Also, like, when I think Brian Collins gave me shit because I said I like Bad Milo, and he's like, Hell Baby's better.
No, oh my God, he's out of his mind. All right, Friday Night 2. What the fuck?
Oh, I didn't even see that one.
Nothing Left to Fear, the Slash-produced supernatural horror movie. Terrible. Spiders 3D. Crap. Haunting in Connecticut 2. Haunting in Georgia or something in Georgia.
I
What?
liked Haunting in Connecticut too.
Terrible.
Okay, aside from the geographical confusion, if that had come out under a different title,
No, it's still,
I would have been like, it's not a bad ending.
It's still generic.
No.
Cherry Tree Lane, which came out in the UK last year.
That Victor Salva? No.
And, home invasion film. Argento's Dracula, nonsensical.
More Mantis.
A haunted house, the Wayans spoof, terrible. And finally, probably the number one. No. Argento's Dracula's number one. Ghost Team 1.
Oh, yeah.
Ghost
I
Team
have
1,
so
which
many
is
copies of that to give out at trivia.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry.
They sent me like 30
Terrible.
copies.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, so
hilarious.
Ghost Team 1. I just needed to get that off my chest because I've had it written down for a while.
Mike Williamson defended Dracula 3D.
Well,
He said it was a good movie.
Ouch.
Well, Mike Williamson's out of his mind.
Yeah, there you go.
sometimes.
Okay, well, any other? Let's. Do you have any other way? I gotta throw a shout out to a short film because I've curating so many films at Jump Cut. The Root of the Problem by Ryan Spindell is like one of my
awesome.
favorite shorts
Yeah,
I've seen in
it's a good one.
a couple years. So I really wanted to highlight that as a great short. It probably is getting close to being online, so it'd be cool to put it out there.
Yeah, that was a really good
Let's
one.
do favorite DVD release. I mean, if there's one film that you were happy that it can be a re-release. I mean,
Yeah.
is there something that was Shout Factory?
I'm going to shoot a few out just because I love Blu-ray setup and how great stuff they've been doing. The best stuff coming out was obviously Scream Factory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They really it's going to be tough to beat what they did this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to pick one title that I thought was their best in terms of a release, I'm going to go with The Fog. It's the best looking. It's one of my favorite movies. You got it too.
Mm-hmm.
Great interview with Jamie Lee Curtis on there, and it's not specifically about The Fog. It's actually a nice little Scream Queen interview, like about all her horror stuff. So that's the thing. It's just the features, the package, the look of it, the actual restoration, the fact they brought Dean Cundey
Well, it's the
back in.
lighting because that film has often. I mean, we've all liked it for a long time, but it really was murky.
Oh my god!
And that really did change how that film
I
feels.
did it back in October. I watched the Blu-ray of that double billed with Halloween 3, both Dean Cundey shot movies, and they looked fantastic. So that's the one that I would pick out of their stuff. But I mean, you got to give it up to Scream Factory. The work they've been doing with Carpenter stuff and with Hooper stuff, because the Funhouse looks great, Life Force looks amazing, and they got that director's cut on there.
Body bags.
Yeah. I mean, all the Carpenter stuff. They've kind of, because of them, I'm on a quest to get every single Carpenter movie on Blu-ray, because I feel like a lot of times you watch these movies, we've seen these growing up so many times on VHS or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels like watching them for the first time again with the work that these people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Runner-up in terms of company, Blue Underground. They always do a great job. Their work on Maniac Cop 2 and 3 is amazing. I mean, 4K transfers on both movies. Features are fantastic.
And we'll be talking about that next week.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why.
Not next week.
I gave away my copies of Trivia Night, so I can't tell you if they were great or not.
Okay. I actually, okay.
I gave them
they
away.
already heard about this.
That's right. There's also another Blue Underground that was really good, but I'm not sure if it's the previous year. I was just watching recently Torso. They re-released Sergio Martinez Torso, and not a lot of extras, but it looks great.
Yeah.
Like it's a very stylish movie.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch
Pretty nasty,
that. I haven't
but-
seen that in a
I just want to
long
give a
time.
shout out to Shout Factory too. They're doing some or Scream Factory. They're doing some really great stuff. I'm also very happy that Criterion decided to release The Brood and Scanners on digital, on VOD. And I remember it was like, I don't know why. I mean, those exist on Blu-ray, yes?
Yes.
Or am I incorrect?
No.
No, they did.
Right.
Criterion's going to do Scanners eventually.
Right, but this was like an exclusive thing. It was digital only Criterion edition Brood and Scanners.
I
I
didn't know
swear
Yeah,
I
there
have
will
the
be
Brood on
physical-
Blu-ray already.
Import, if it is.
Okay.
It's not out here.
Yeah, so I
Because
was really happy to see those pop up in iTunes, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then when they were available for $19.99, and then they were available for $9.99. They went on sale really, and I was like, yes, wow, download.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But they look amazing.
Nice. I was really psyched. Well, Mandy Lane, my number one DVD release of the year. And I really like Scream Factory just because when they've done these releases, I mean, of course, they've done like the Carpenter and the Hooper stuff, but they've done a lot of smaller things that have made me go back and watch them again. Like last night, I watched Die Monster Die, which I hadn't watched since I was a kid. And the features on it are top notch. The film looks great. I rewatched all of the Vincent Price collection and was totally
that is
psyched.
a huge deal that they put all those out there.
Yeah, Red Mask of the Red
that's one of the
Death
best
and
looking
Witchfinders
films.
General. They look so good. So yeah, those were definitely. And I was excited about The Visitor being finally released
I'm
too.
excited. It's a fun film.
Yeah, Draft House.
I know you
guess
didn't
we should
like
give
it.
them
It's
Yeah,
batshit
Draft
crazy.
House.
We should
I
give them a shout
cannot
out
wait for
for their-
Ms. 45.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, they're doing good stuff too. What about favorite thing you saw on screen? Like it could be a new or an old film. Is there something you guys went to a movie theater and went like, oh shit, this is
I didn't
incredible?
see it at the theater. I saw The Skull at your shop.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a theater.
That was good. Yeah, that counts.
Counts as a micro theater.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before, but it had like haunted my dreams because it used to be on this cover that I used to have.
Wait, no, you're talking about The Mask, not The
Mask.
Skull.
I'm sorry.
The Skull's the Peter Cushing. Yeah, put The Mask on now. Yeah,
but,
I agree with that
The
one.
Mask I had on Incredibly Interesting Films. It was on this film book that I had when I was younger, and I never knew what it was from. And then when I finally saw it, but I love that movie.
And imagine in 3D, those sequences are 3D, and we didn't get to see. I bet it's amazing.
Yeah,
yeah. I had two screening things. One, I didn't see it when it came out, but earlier this year, and it was like a last minute thing. I got to see Frankenweenie in 3D with Tim Burton there,
cool.
and just the whole experience. Because I heard your Tim Burton episode, which was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
And he's kind of not the Tim Burton we love anymore, but Frankenweenie has flourishes of that, and I think it's because it's something that from the beginning of his career. And I didn't see the movie, but I saw it that night in 3D, and I just got swept up by the whole thing. And then having him come up and talk about it was like super cool. And so that experience. And the other one was a Secret 16 at Jump Cut. It was when Mike did that surprise John Carpenter night. He showed two really early college short films that John Carpenter did, which were awesome. Well, not awesome, but it's just interesting to get to see,
especially one of them that really had some similarities to kind of a Halloween.
Yeah, Captain Voyeur.
Captain Voyeur in a goofy way, but yeah.
And then the Western thing,
Buckaroo,
the Bronco,
Bronco Billy.
And then he followed it up with a 16 millimeter print of Elvis, the first thing that he did with Kurt Russell.
A lot of us had never seen.
Cool
and we were like, wow.
Such a cool
well, Kurt Russell's just like, you're like,
great.
Jesus, you're good,
So good.
So I thought that was a really unique, cool screening at your place.
Thanks.
Similarly on John Carpenter, this year I saw John Carpenter's The Thing on the big screen
Oh, yeah.
for the first time, and that was fucking awesome. And then I really, really dug the People Under the Stairs screening.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never seen Wes in person before.
Oh.
Did a Q&A afterwards, and it was really cool. And also, that's a movie to see with an audience.
Yeah, because it's not a great film.
Because if you watch it by yourself, you're just kind of like, this is batshit.
It's
totally batshit.
Oh, yeah, it's so crazy, but it was really neat. And it was neat because where we were sitting, I was like watching Wes watch the movie, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
so
no,
we
that's
get to
interesting,
watch him 20, however many years later, 30 or whatever, watch this movie on the big screen, and that was a great experience. So thank you, Ryan, for letting me tag along.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Cinefamily.
Yeah, thanks.
Two experiences for me, I guess I would say They Live at Cinefamily. Seeing it with it. I see a lot of movies at Cinefamily, but I wind up falling asleep because they always happen at midnight, and it's really difficult to stay awake. But They Live, I mean, I'd seen it when I was in middle school when it first opened, opening night. My dad took me to go see it. Loved it then, still love it. But to see it with a crowd on a big screen, it's just something else because a good chunk of that audience had never seen it.
Wow.
So
I love that.
they were just rolling with it. And I was like, this is great. And then seeing Darkman, man, at
that was
Cafe.
a fun one, huh?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That movie held up better than I remember.
That movie so holds
like it's
up.
a good movie.
Holy crap.
Yeah, no, that was a good screening.
That renewed my faith in Darkman.
Yeah, totally.
Like, yes.
And in Raimi, it makes you go, he's just a really talented guy. Like,
How did Raimi never do the chameleon in any of the Spider-Man movies when you look at Darkman? Because it's totally that.
They're probably
maybe because he just didn't want to retread territory.
They might have gone there, but I had one Cinefamily, one basket case. It was in 35 millimeter. It was really hard for me to get there. I was wearing a Santa suit at a party, and I was taking it off on my way. I got there like with a minute to spare because I hadn't seen it in a long time and I knew I remembered the character, but not so much the movie. And the cool thing was in 35 millimeter. And afterwards, one of the programmers said to me, "Hey, just so whatever you do, don't tweet that you just saw that in 35 mil because we're tight with Frank Hounlatter, but he only lets people show it in Blu-ray." Because he prefers Blu-ray to 35, which is crazy to me. And I know he's not listening, so I don't care.
That kind of makes sense.
But it's just weird to me. But seeing that, it was great. And it holds up. It's a good movie. It's a really funny, weird movie. But actually, my favorite, I've shown so much this year at Jump Cut, but we did a big shorts night, and we ended with Sage Stallone's film, Vic.
Man. Oh, yeah.
And Clue, who's the star of it, got up and did this little speech beforehand, which influenced some of the emotion of the film. But this is one of the better 30-minute films that's ever been made. And it's one of the best films about Hollywood and casting and aging and what he kept referring to as the humiliation of being an actor, which is that you have to go through this. You have to audition for people. Even when you're a 60-year-old man, you have to be told no. You have to get little checks for 65 cents in the mail as a residual, and you have to go to your family. And it was just, man, that and the fact that Sage had passed this year, I didn't even know the guy, but knowing his love of cinema, all those things together made that one of those moments where I think quarter of the group who were there for the shorts night stayed. Yeah. Everyone there was like changed in that moment.
Pretty much in tears.
And touched by this great little film. And it's available starting this week from Grindhouse releasing. For the first time, they're like,
Good.
hey, you can buy this off our website. It's probably really cheap, like a few bucks, and it's a great movie, man.
There was another short that I saw at Jump Cut that definitely I was so excited to finally see it on screen. It was one that they used to play on HBO when I was a kid, because I don't know if you guys remember, but HBO used to do shorts in between their movies.
Yeah.
This is way back in the 80s. They definitely don't do that anymore. But it was about killer videotape, and I think it was actually called The Killer Tape or something like that.
Was that part of the Halloween stuff?
Yeah, and it was Mike showed it as part of the Halloween stuff, and it's a guy goes to what he thinks is a job interview, but this tape, this 16 millimeter tape, starts eating him. And
16 millimeter film, dear.
Sorry, thank you. 16 millimeter, it's film tape. Starts eating him, and he's running from it, and it really does become kind of a creature feature about a ball of film.
We'd be able to figure it out because it's by the guy who wrote Short Circuit. It was his student film.
Yeah.
And it was like it was one of Mike had a 16 print. It was really cool.
It's a lot of stop motion in it that they used to create the film monster. And I was so excited to see that because it was one of those that I've told people about where I'd be like, I remember this awesome thing that I saw on HBO when I was a kid. And then I've never seen it since. So I was so excited to see it there. And then I have to mention a rediscovery. So my big rediscovery, I've become obsessed with this film, Blood on Satan's Claw.
Cool. That's the one I've been wanting to see. Your discovery came from my obsession wanting to see it, and I still haven't seen it.
No, actually,
I kept saying to you, I really want to see it. I really want to see this film.
It came because we were doing a Fangoria production meeting about movies that needed to be re-released, and we were like doing some editorial with them, and everybody was like, Blood on Satan's Claw, Blood on Satan's Claw. It's never been released here, and I was like, why haven't I seen this? So I got a British version, and if you like Wicker Man, pagans, witchcraft, anything like that, Witchfinder General, you're going to freaking love this movie.
Do you have a reason why it's not out here?
No clue. Okay. I mean, and it's weird because when I've done the research on it, because I've been writing on it, if you look at its reception in England, it's considered to be like one of the greatest horror movies of all time. It's like their Exorcist.
Yeah, no, it is. It's always been called that. That's why I wanted to see it.
Over here, apparently, it's owned by MGM, and apparently they will show it like once a year at 2 a.m. on a random Wednesday.
MGM and those TCM are incredible. Sometimes a thing that is not available just comes on, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And you miss it or you
hear
catch
about it, and you're like, oh, Blood on Satan's Claw was on at 4 a.m.
I know
Thursday.
Joe Dante knows a lot about it because he has it's part of his Trailers from Hell, and I know he has a print of it. So it'd be interesting to find out the story behind that. For favorite discovery, for me, it was The Black Room, the Rupert Pupkin blog. He has this blog where everyone was doing their underrated horror, and it appeared on all these things. It's a VHS only film. It hasn't come to tape, and I was just like, what is this little movie? It's set in Laurel Canyon. It's like a weird vampire film, really sexy, really, it's all about sex, and it was just really well made, like very adult, and it was from like 1980, I think, and really good. People should find it on VHS if they can, until it comes out. And I guess any else, otherwise we can go to what you want to see in 2014, then we should wrap.
2014.
Do it.
Okay, I got a list here.
No, I think it should be one film. What's the one film you want to see?
Let's see.
Because we can do a show in January
soon.
Yeah, everyone needs to leave. What's one film you're dying to see in 2014? I think that's how this should roll.
Mine is Horns.
Yeah, look, I just wrote that one.
Really?
I have it on.
It's my third, but it's
Horns is. I love Alexander. I love him.
I'm really curious.
I want to watch him.
Yeah, cool.
For me, it's Scott Derrickson's new one, Deliver Us from Evil.
Oh, cool.
Which is, what was the title originally?
Beware the Night.
Beware the Night. It's now that, but
is it horror?
Yeah, I think
it's
so.
It's like an exorcism drama, kind of exorcism, like detective drama kind of thing. Yeah.
I had both of those, but since they've already been said, I'll go with Wreck Apocalypse.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm simple. I'm Godzilla.
Cool.
I cannot wait for Godzilla. Like, I'm just so excited for that.
Weirdly enough, mine's just cheap thrills because everyone talked about it. Everyone got to see it. I didn't get to see it. So I feel like, it sounds so good. I want to see that movie. Yeah. And I haven't seen it. So also I'm curious about Oculus. Oculus
that's on
just
my list
sounds
too.
Interesting to me.
Yeah.
From what people are saying.
And I've been watching great press for the new Paranormal Activity marked
Ryan
ones.
saw it.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I did very
Thumbs
much.
up.
Okay.
It's definitely a sequel. It's not even a spin. I mean, it's a spin-off in the sense that it's like, one of those kind of like parallel running stories, but it's funny. It's really funny. It doesn't talk down to the Latino crowd. It doesn't throw in these Latino tropes where it's just like, it's really silly. It's got some good jump scares, and it's got a lot of great little nuggets for the people who like the series. And then I'm throwing air quotes. It goes there in the third act where you're like, really?
Can't wait.
Cool.
What?
Wow,
and when is that going to be? When can we see that?
January 3rd.
January.
Okay, so it is next year.
Yeah.
And when I was researching, I heard that they're finally releasing 7500. Have you gotten?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No, that's I spoke to someone at Scout Taylor Compton keeps saying it's coming out. Like she said, was like it's coming out in October.
Yeah, that was an interview with her that I read that was like, oh no, it's coming out late summer, and I was like, really? I haven't heard of this, Ryan.
No, and then I spoke to a rep who was involved in the film. They were like, we don't know what to do with it.
Ryan and I did a set visit on that movie 2 years ago now.
Yeah, good luck with me pulling that set report out. If they actually ask for me to write it, I have no idea where those files are.
I don't have a clue.
That's hilarious. That's funny.
Yeah, they put an embargo on us that day, and they were like, not for another couple of months.
And the publicists who were on that project have now since moved on to other studios, so they're no longer involved in like whatever it is.
Weird.
So anyways,
final thoughts. So we unwrap anything that you saw, read, liked, and then we put 2013 behind us forever.
Witching and Bitching. It's coming up. It hasn't released here yet, but I saw it at AFM and I loved it.
Cool.
I want to give a shout out to the Stanley Film Festival. What film festival that everybody should be paying attention to when it starts rolling at the end of spring, beginning of summer. They did a great job. I went to it when I was on the Purge tour, and that was one of the stops along the way. And it's a great location. It's about 40 minutes outside the airport, so you're like literally driving out into the mountains. So everybody is like, it's kind of like a campus environment. You're all on one location. There's nowhere else to go except for the main bar and restaurant. And they've got one theater. They show movies all the time, and it was so much fun. The Stanley Film Festival in Colorado. Yeah.
Oh, the Kubrick thing. Yeah, I heard about that. McGarris was there and everything. I remember hearing about that.
Well, I mean, it's not the Kubrick thing. I mean, the Stanley Film Festival is like it's just their film festival. Right. A lot of people who are involved in the LA Film Fest out here are part of the programming team there. Cool. A lot of LA people who are part of programming teams in other festivals here are part of that program. You
stay in the hotel.
You stay in the hotel. Oh, wow. There's nowhere else to stay.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's cool.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a Shining thing.
Yeah, it's the original Shining hotel. Like that's where
let's go next year. Let's do that next year.
That's where King wrote. That's where King wrote The Shining.
Okay,
and it's also the location that McGarris did use for his take on The Shining. Right. But it was just a great camaraderie and great environment, because after every screening there was a party in the main area, and it was just everybody just hanging out and talking movies, and the talent had to stay there, everybody had to stay there.
That is cool.
It was so much fun. And while you're there, there's one channel that plays The Shining backwards and forwards, cut of the movie. So you could just put it on in the background while you're just like getting ready for the day. It's really creepy.
Was room 237 screened?
That's where room 237. Yeah.
Rodney was there. Cool. Interesting.
My one shout out for 2013. Shout out to Spencer Hickman, not only for Death Waltz, for doing an amazing job with all those releases, but for putting together Beyond Fest in October.
That was unexpected.
That was great.
That's another
knocked
great one.
It out of the park. I mean, a lot of combination of films with music. They brought Goblin to town. They did a trick or treat screening.
Goblin's got to be like one of the highlights of this year. That was kind of incredible.
Everything about Beyond Fest and what Spencer and his partners on that festival did was great, and I can't wait to see what they do for 2014. So shout out to them.
Yep.
I don't really have I want to do another looking forward to next year.
Do it.
The Strain.
The
Guillermo
show.
the show. FX. I'm such a Guillermo del Toro fan, and I'm really reading the book, and I'm enjoying.
When is that? Do you know?
Late summer, July.
Yeah. That teaser was really cool.
I can't wait. And also, it was supposed to be a TV show in the first place, and then turned into a book because nobody wanted it, and now it's going back to a TV show, which I think is fascinating and cool. And I think that FX is a great home for it. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah. It's kind of like Zombieland. Zombieland was supposed to be a television series, and then they turned it into a feature, and then they turned it into a web series, which was crapola.
Fail.
My friend was in that. Be quiet.
Sorry.
Nothing against your friend.
Favorite book, House of Psychotic Woman.
You get to read?
Yes.
You get to read.
I haven't finished this book because I stop it every time I get to films I haven't seen.
You've been reading this book since
I could be reading it for
a
couple more years, but I love everything about it. It's really personal and really good films in there. I found quite a few I like. And I really want to give a shout. I like Jeffrey Combs and Would You Rather. Didn't make my list, but Jeffrey Combs and Would You Rather was awesome. And I also and I want to shout out to a project that didn't happen, Nevermore. And I'm gonna hope that 2014 they figure out a different way to make that movie, because I think that's something that really should get made. And I think a lot of great people are trying to make that happen. And then there's a couple movies that we have seen that you should look forward to. Sacrament, Almost Human. There's some really cool stuff that we've seen at festivals that we didn't include.
Well, I just want to give some love as we're wrapping up, because this is the last episode before we enter into 2014. But I want to say I'm very thankful for the collaborations that we've been experiencing. Not here in LA. I mean, one with finding Clarke for the podcast, for the Bloodcast. Thanks for coming on board. Aww. And for you guys, because I mean, like the horror trivia night thing was not something that I ever anticipated would be taking up part of my life in 2013, but it's something I look forward to.
Yeah,
and,
it's great.
And it's a great
I just text Ryan
thing.
my categories while we were sitting.
Yeah, this morning I texted her and I was like, what categories do you have? Because I don't want to overlap. And then like literally through this episode, I just get a text from Rebekah.
Yeah, you guys do a great job with that.
Here?
Well, it's just, I think there's a lesson for people wherever you live. It's like a way we can still create physical community, wherever that is, makes a big difference.
Well, it just reminds me of like when we actually had like the Fright Club thing going, where everybody was, we'd go out every week for whatever horror release, and the horror trivia night is the closest thing to that we have. I mean, it's getting on people's radars and people are getting involved, and also the hair. I don't go to it that much, but what you guys are doing with horror karaoke or with a karaoke thing.
I'm not part of that anymore.
I want to tell you.
See, now that's some drama that is unnecessary that we discussed.
You
anyways,
guys, as a spectator of trivia night, because I like to drink the lemonade.
I saw you there. Yeah, you supported.
I like to stand in the back and drink the lemonade and eat gluten-free food that Jump Cut offers, which I greatly appreciate. But you guys are doing such great things. I can really tell that everybody who's into it is having such a good time. And I think it's really cool because it's fun to watch people. I watch you guys do it, and I think you guys look like kids having a really good time.
We are.
Well, just Jump Cut in general, and not to wax your pole here.
No, I mean you're not. You're talking about a guy who every week Becca has to hear me go, it's all over. I'm going to close tomorrow.
Elric whines to me constantly.
Well, it's not whining. Whining is when you're not telling the truth. This is like being an alcoholic going, it's day to day. That is really the truth. But
and I've learned
small businesses in America are day to day.
Where I go, okay, you're going to get through this. You got through it last week,
but
darling,
first year's the hardest, and without that, let me put it this way: we would be gone a lot quicker. Without things like trivia, without things like Secret 16, without the reasons that we created it was not to make a coffee shop, it was to create a place for events. So without those great events, it'd be meaningless. So even 6 people came last night for Toad Road, but it was a good 6 people because we all stayed. We didn't all know each other. We all stayed and talked about something that we were like, what did we just see? And it was so much better than if I'd watched a screener of that same movie. So
exactly. So thank you for that, and thanks to Geek Nation for
definitely
putting us all together.
Yeah, exactly.
And for us, Andrew Cash, we have to throw because he threw us together.
This has been fun doing this with you guys.
Yeah, we didn't know each other when we started. I knew Elric,
we knew each other.
and I knew Rob a little bit
until we started doing the show.
Yeah, he used to say bad things.
Clarke knows Becca, and Becca knows Clarke.
Yes, we've met today.
Amazing.
Oh my god!
That's exactly what happened when they walked in.
And actually, Killer POV, thank you guys for welcoming me. I really appreciate that, and thank you guys so much for helping promote the Bloodcast. I know that I love doing the Bloodcast so very much, and having you guys on our team and supporting us is
there's a lot of crossover.
Huge.
I'm noticing a lot of fans are listening to the same show.
People listening, thank you.
Yeah. Oh dear Lord, yes.
Help us out. Spread the word. Go on iTunes. Give us, comments and rate both our shows.
Thanks to the guy who came, and you guys don't know this, but a guy came to, out of 7 people who came to screening yesterday, a guy we've never seen before came up to us and said, I just wanted you to know I listened to the show and really love it.
Chris.
I listen to it all the time now. And it's like, that is going to be what keeps us doing this. Yeah. We're not being paid to do this. We're all here because we genuinely are really passionate about this stuff. And so if you really like it, you tell us, we keep doing this.
Yeah. Facebook page, Geek Nation page. Leave your comments. We obviously all read them and we appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for the year. Cool. We've got cool shit planned for 2014, so stick with us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Keep listening, guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.